Call to order the Town Commission regular meeting of January 25th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Tom Peck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo, here. Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Here.
Okay, our first item tonight is a presentation on seagrass restoration by Dr. Lorraine Simpson. Dr. Simpson is the Director of Research and Conservation for the Florida Oceanographic Society since 2020. She received her PhD from UF in Soil and Water Science in 2016. This presentation is a follow-up from the presentation we had from the South Florida Water Management District a few weeks ago. Welcome, Dr. Simpson.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you for the invitation to be here tonight. As the Mayor mentioned, you've already had a wonderful presentation from South Florida Water Management District. And so while I needed to take some of the elements of what Jessica presented in terms of Lake District to tell the story of restoration, we're really going to talk mainly about restoration in the Indian River Lagoon, how we do it, and why we're doing it right now. Next.
It's showing next on mine, Tom, but not on hers. There you go? There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we're sitting in this room right now having this conversation because of the dire statistic that 58% of our seagrasses in the Indian River Lagoon have disappeared since 2009. And while this has been happening for a long time, I think it's really come to light, unfortunately, because of the mass mortalities of manatees due to starvation. Next. And so I just wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive on where that stat came from. This is the graph from the St. John River Water Management District, where that was pulled from. And so on their y-axis, you have the extent, or the acres of seagrass in the Indian River Lagoon. So how much seagrass is there over the 156 miles?
I'm trying. I think it's up here double. Huh? So,
All right.
there?
Next one back previous. There we
This
go.
one? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the aerial extent, those are the green bars. So how much seagrass is there in the Indian River Lagoon? And then overlaid on top of that is the percent cover. And so that's on the alternate y-axis, which is a percentage, which essentially means of the aerial extent that is out there, when you do the dive and you look at how much is actually on the ground, what is the coverage? Is it parsed or is it sparse? Is it dense? Is it patchy? Is it a mud flat at this point? And so I think this is actually more telling and more disturbing is that the percent cover since 2009, we've lost 89% of that. So what is left in the Indian River Lagoon is 10% of what it was back in 2009. Next. And so this is a picture just pulled off of Google Earth, and obviously you can see where you are there. And we have this beautiful flat that is off the tip of Sailfish Point. And this picture was taken from satellite imagery from 2010. And you can see that the grass flat is just green and lush, and it looks absolutely fantastic. If we fast forward to last year, there's another picture next from 2021, where you can see that that seagrass flat is completely gone, and it's just sand. And that sand is unconsolidated because there's nothing holding it there, and it just kind of free moves around the water column due to tides and wind-driven events. Next. So if you were to get in the water back in 2010 and look to see what that flat at Sailfish Point looked like, this is what it would look like. This is probably around 80 to 90% cover and very dynamic, very happy seagrass flats. Next. If you were to dive in today, this is what you see. This is that 10% that I'm talking about. And so this is kind of what Jessica talked about last meeting, where when you have this loss of structure, you have a loss of function. Next. And so that loss of function means that we're losing those ecosystem services. Once again, one of the ecosystem services is food for grazers, but we're also talking about habitat for fish and the small animals that fish eat. We're also talking about nutrient cycling, carbon sequestration, shoreline stabilization, a myriad of things that we're losing right in front of our eyes. Next. And so while that's not the conversation that we're going to have today, we're going to talk about what we're doing at Florida Oceanographic to help restore that and what other people around the state are doing as well. And so back in 2016, researchers, we knew this was happening. This became like a really big conversation probably in the late 2000s. Like, we see this happening, we see the trajectory. One of the problems with our seagrass flats here in the Indian River County or Indian River Lagoon is that they don't necessarily reproduce by seed. Next. So most of the reproduction by our seagrass here, the 7 species that we have, is by rhizomes. And so there hasn't been a seed bank that's been found. It's very, very rare to find a plant that is flowering, which means that if we need to put seagrass back into the lagoon, we literally have to go and plant it back out there. And this is not as easy as going and planting sod in your garden, unfortunately. So what we have asked people to do starting back in 2016 is walk the beaches and find pieces of seagrass for us. If there was a root on it, if there's a rhizome on it, please bring it back to us and we can plant it. Next.
Kind of like Dave's business.
Easy.
And so what we have done is we started the Seagrass Nursery, where we started with little tiny fragments and planted them into smaller or big tanks and smaller mesocosms, which you can see on the right hand side here. And when given the opportunity and the proper water quality, it does really well. So the small fragments have turned into what you see here on the right. Next. If we look from above, those blue tanks that I just showed you, they're kind of down in the left-hand corner, those are providing us with 350 square feet of planting space. And once the seagrass has filled that planting space out, then we move it to the right side of our game fish lagoon, where we have another 5,400 square feet planting area. So that whole backside of our game fish lagoon, I don't know if you guys have been to Florida Oceanographic Society, is all seagrass, and it is ready to go out into the lagoon when the time is right. Now, there's a lot of different ways to restore here in the IRL, and it just depends on the organization that is doing it. A lot of people will plant using pots. They'll plant the seagrass in a pot and then just put that in the ground. Some people will do bare root plugs, where you just literally take the little tiny piece of seagrass and shove it in and hope it sticks. Because Florida Oceanographic has a mission to inspire advocacy within the community, we really wanted to make sure that we can involve our community partners and volunteers in this process. Next. So what we have done is we have come up with a way to have volunteers come and help us and actually map seagrass. And so this picture in the middle, there's a piece of burlap, and what we do is we pull up that seagrass from that flat that we have, and we tie the seagrass onto the burlap map with floral wire. And then we take that mat next, and we utilize volunteers, and they help us. They'll plant 16 mats within that meter square quadrat, and they'll stake them down onto the sediment with bamboo skewers. And so you have the bamboo skewers, which are biodegradable, you have the mats, which are biodegradable, and given not a lot of time, just a few months, they will actually break down, and the seagrass will be able to root. Next. This is a project we did almost a year ago up at Satellite Beach, Simpsons Island. And if you look closely, you can see the little black squares. And those are the areas where we had the volunteers go out and put the seagrass. And just after 4 months, there was 98% establishment. And those mats kind of act as a way to help facilitate the roots getting into the ground and help anchor it over time. Now, while we can go and restore, it's painful right now because I unfortunately have people calling me weekly saying, please come and plant seagrass at my house. We need to save the manatees. We need to get seagrass back out there. And unfortunately, you can't just put seagrass anywhere. There are certain places that it should go, and there are certain rubrics that as scientists and restoration practitioners need to pay attention to. And so the first and foremost is water quality is key. This is obviously a conversation that we have a lot in this area, but without getting into the weeds of that, first and foremost, clear water. Next. These are plants, so they must photosynthesize. So they need the energy from the sun to be converted so that into a usable form. And so if you have a water quality issue where it's not getting the sunlight it needs, it's going to eventually stress and eventually die. Next. We did a mini experiment over the summer just to kind of bring this to light. And what we did is we took those mats that we talked about. So we built a bunch of mats with 16 shoots on each, and we planted them in our big blue bins. Next. And then in those blue bins, we subjected them to 3 different light treatments. We had a full sunlight treatment at 100%, we had the medium light at 55%, and then a low light treatment at 25%. And if you look closely, you can see on some of those blue bins, there's some shade cloth, and that's how we did the treatments. And these treatments are essentially supposed to mimic some sort of algal bloom or some sort of turbidity event over a long period of time. Next. And so what we found was for the highlight, when it was given wonderful water, in just 4 months, there's 200 shoots from that 16 shoot mat. And that's what almost a 1,200% increase in density of that seagrass, which is absolutely wonderful. So this just goes to show if we give it the opportunity, it will grow and it will do well. Unfortunately, that can't be said for the other treatments. Next. In the medium light treatment, the 55%, it hung on. It's, it still was at 16, 20 shoots per mesocosm, but it didn't do much after that. Unfortunately, the low light treatment, it only took 2 months for there to be complete mortality. So it held on that first month as much as possible, but by the second month, it wasn't able to get there. And so just thinking about our water quality and our algal blooms and pulsings of water, and what can we do to make sure that we can give the seagrass its best opportunity when we get out there to restore it. Next. Another important thing to keep in mind is we need to keep the salinity envelope in check for these guys. Next. There is an optimal salinity range for our seagrass in the Indian River Lagoon, depending on the species, but it's around 14 to 45 parts per thousand. And so if you're above that or below that, it will really stress and potentially kill the seagrass species. And you can see this in this graph. We have leaf extension rate on the y-axis, and this is for manatee grass, Syringodium. And about 5 to 10 parts per thousand, you can see the leaf extension rate isn't as great as it is at 15, 20, and 25. And then after that, around 30, you start to see it tail off. So it's very apparent that the optimal salinity range here in Syringodium is 15 to 25 parts per thousand. And why this is important is, if you're going to do a restoration project, don't plant it in a canal, don't plant it in front of a stormwater drain, don't plant it in the mouth of some sort of pollutant, because eventually it will stress and die, and all that work that you did to get that seagrass on the ground will be for naught. Next. Nutrients is another big player, and that obviously goes along with water quality that makes it into the lagoon. I think obviously, you give a plant a limited nutrient and it's going to change its biomass allocation, it's going to change its metabolism, which over time could be detrimental. But one of the main concerns here is, there's other things in the water column. So if you give a limiting nutrient to algal or to algae or to phytoplankton, it could eventually lead to a harmful algal bloom, and that will eventually shade out the seagrass and lead to mortality. Next. There's also temporal factors to consider, and the main one is to plant during the growing season. Next. Seagrasses grow between April and September. They're usually in the water year-round, but they're just not producing as much as they would as it was in the summertime. And you can see that on these graphs. We have some for the lassie on the left, which is turtle grass, and Syringodium on the right, which is manatee grass. Standing crop on the y-axis in abundance. And if you look at the data, there's kind of like this oscillating pattern. And so in the summertime, you have a higher standing crop, higher abundance, but in the wintertime, that drops off a little bit. And so if you're going to plant seagrass out into the lagoon, don't do it in the wintertime when it's not growing. It's not going to put its roots out, it's not going to be able to photosynthesize as well, and it's not going to be able to potentially survive into the next season. Next. There's also spatial factors to consider, and the first big one is, was there seagrass here before? You know, Mother Nature has done a wonderful job at telling us where things should be and how they should be there. And so, as a restoration practitioner, you always want to go into the data first and see if seagrass was actually there. South Florida Water Management District has done a wonderful job putting together a platform for us where you can go online, this is open to everybody, and you can see where seagrass coverage was. I think their most recent is 2017, but all the way back to 1942. And so we use this to go in and say, well, seagrass is here, we can definitely put it back. And the colors here actually denote whether it's dense, patchy, or continuous. So this is a wonderful tool for everybody to use. Next. Sediment type is also very important. We have roots that need to anchor into the sediment, and so you want to plant it in ideally a sandy bottom. We don't want to place it in muck. Muck is very unconsolidated and will not allow the roots to actually bind to anything, because that muck is always being resuspended. Not to mention all of the other biogeochemical processes that are taking place in that weird muck layer. Next. This also goes along with the conversation about water clarity. So on the left-hand side, you have a muck sample, and on the right-hand side, you have a sand sample. And these researchers, they put it in a jar, shook it up, and you can see over time that the sand settles out very quickly, and the water quality goes back to what it was very quickly. Whereas the muck bottle, that actually stays pretty turbid for a long time. And so if you can imagine, you know, at hour 6, it's still very turbid, but it's also in a closed system. There's no wind or waves that are keeping that resuspended. And so always, you know, going back to where to put it, don't put it in a canal or right next to a stormwater drain where there's a mucky bottom. Next. Intertidal location is also very important. You don't want to put it so far up in the tidal column that it will be out of water and will die from desiccation, but also you don't want to put it so low that it will be too deep and it won't be able to get the water or the photosynthesis that it needs. You know, we also don't want to put it in an area where the public can really get to it. If there's a kayak launch or kids are playing, as much as we want them to enjoy the water, the seagrass can't handle that, especially at the point it is right now. Next.
Excuse me.
Predation risk right now is unfortunately a conversation we need to have as well. I know that there's not a lot of seagrass out there for the manatees, but manatees and other animals, they eat a lot of seagrass per day. And so if you look at the picture at the bottom, this is a exclusion project that was done in the Caribbean. So they're actually trying to exclude turtles. But you can see where the seagrass is excluded, it looks absolutely fantastic. On the outside of it, it has been completely mowed down. In a natural system, that's wonderful because the turtle or the manatee can move to another place, graze, and leave that area to grow. But right now we don't have enough seagrass, so if we let the manatees eat whatever we put in the ground, they're just going to mow it all the way down and won't have the time to be able to grow into the next season. So unfortunately, any sort of restoration project right now, we really need to exclude the big charismatic megafauna at least for a year to give the seagrass some time to establish. Next. Another really important thing that people are really starting to sign on to, which is absolutely fantastic, is co-respiration with other foundation species. You know, going back to the conversation about Mother Nature, she figured this all out. All these species interact with one another. There's a lot of connectivity between our foundation species. So why are we restoring one thing at a time? We should be restoring multiple species at the same time to hopefully utilize the ecosystem processes that they're doing independently for one another. Next. A great example, we're going to take you back to that Satellite Beach project where we put in seagrass. Next. We also put in oyster breakwaters, which you can see in the forefront of this picture in front of that sign. So that's a bunch of oyster shell, and that oyster shell hopefully will attract oysters to settle and grow a reef. That reef will in turn provide breakwater for the seagrass behind it to protect it, but also once those oysters start filtering water, they'll be able to clean the water for the seagrass behind it. So it's a wonder mutualistic effect. Next. We also restored some clams at the same time. Unfortunately, our clam population in IRL has crashed. It did crash back in 2010. So there's been a big push by the University of Florida to get clams back in the IRL. Next. And by co-restoring seagrass with clams, we have the clams that are providing seagrass with water quality improvement through their filtration. And then they're also providing the roots nutrients for growth. And so this is very different than the nutrients that are floating around in the water column, but this is direct nutrients that they can actually use right away. Next. Meanwhile, though, seagrass is providing clams with protection for predation. So clams are predated on by stingrays and red drum. They just kind of cruise across the sediment and suck all that stuff out of the sediment. And so if you have seagrass there, hopefully it provides a little bit of an impediment to that predation effect. They're also stabilizing the sediment for the clams. And so clams, they don't really like it when the sediment's being kicked up a lot. It's hard for them to filter. And so having the seagrass there is helping to stabilize that. And so ideally, if you restore all this together, you have increased survival, growth, and hopefully production for both of the species involved. Next. The last really important point about seagrass restoration is you need a state and federal permit to put seagrass back in the lagoon. You know, once again, I have so many wonderful people that want to restore seagrass on their property, but there's channels that we need to go through to be able to do that. Next. And so there's a state permit that you need to obtain through the Department of Environmental Protection, and then there's a federal permit that once you get the state permit, then you can apply for the federal permit through the Army Corps of Engineers. And this is a lesson in patience because it can take between 5 to 18 months to get that permit for seagrass restoration. Next. And I know I threw a ton of information at you in 20 minutes, so I'm willing to answer any questions, and my email address is there if something pops up in the middle of the night and you just have to ask it.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I do have a couple of very quick questions. I read an article in the paper this weekend about essentially, I think it said, I may be quoting the number wrong, 37%, only 37% of seagrass restoration is successful. And I'm wondering if that is because of the sunlight thing that you just mentioned. Do you think that's the reason, or is there?
There's multiple reasons, and it kind of just goes down that whole list that we talk about. I think water quality is definitely the first one, but if you put it in the wrong spots, it's going to get kicked up, or you put it in a nice spot and someone drives across it in their boat and pulls it all up. It just really depends on the experimental design that they have and where it was.
And the other quick question is, we had started a restoration project up in Moores Creek in Fort Pierce, and the Manatee Observation Education Center up there raised about $75,000. And I'm understanding that essentially the cost of seagrass restoration is, the number I heard was like $50,000 an acre. Is that?
Like 75.
$75,000 an acre. And I think part of that is you don't just plant this grass, you have to monitor it and that kind of thing. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, 100%. There's a lot. I mean, and that's one of the problems with how some of these restoration projects fail is we'll get funding to do a project, but there's only a year of funding to monitor it, and that doesn't cover a whole growing season. So we put it in the ground and then we have to walk away because there isn't money to go back after there.
Any other questions from the commission?
No questions, but I think you did a great job. It was easy to understand and informative, so thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for the great work you're doing. Keep it up. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Next item is public comment on non-agenda items. And let's see, first up is Kathy Miskowski. Usual rules. 3 minutes. Please address the commission as a whole.
For Carol Shantos, because she is not able to be here tonight. I heard Commissioner Tompeck say at a previous meeting that we would not have long meetings in the future. This 600 pages of agenda tonight is absurd. First of all, so many of the residents are fed up with the issues you are trying to put forward that are not in the best interests of the town. Are you trying to bankrupt the town? The people have spoken and you continue to ignore us. What is it going to take for you to see how serious the residents are regarding your financial mishandling of the town's business. I know you won't listen, but this town needs a forensic audit to get to the bottom of where our money is being spent. I asked you, Mr. Fender, Commissioner Fender, where the last money is for the softening of the road in Phase 1 of the road project. It was first $25,000, then it was voted a consensus to be $50,000 for the project to soften the road. Did you look into it? It is the taxpayer's money. Are you planning to account for it? Where is the financial responsibility to the residents? Do you just want a title? Every resident deserves that the commission account for the actions you take while sitting in office. Put your arrogance aside and respond to the wishes of the residents. If not, hand in your resignations. I promise we will accept them as we most willingly did with the town manager. Residents want you to put the brakes on the projects until you have installed a new town manager who can meet the needs of the people of Sewalls Point. We are all watching. Thank you, and I agree that 600 pages of the agenda was absurd, along with the 330 of the comparisons for the comprehensive plan. I give you a lot of respect. It's a lot of your time, and it's time resources. It should be addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Bonnie Flint.
Bonnie Flint, Palmetto Drive, me again. Okay, enough. While I like OPM, other people's music, in band selections, I abhor the spending of OPM here, other people's money, without majority consent of the residents. How much uglier does this have to get, folks? Commissioners, you have never canvassed the town on the expensive S2S project. Figures Joe Capra had for us 4+ years ago, a $20 million project, which is now estimated in the $30 million range. We have a handle on figures, a general notion. There was outrage then, and guess what? Our minds haven't magically changed. I have yet to see a coherent case for support, environmentally, financially, or a model of service for this unnecessary, unneeded project. But you've now had enough time and studies. Let's vote, and immediately. No more studies, not a nickel more be spent on preliminaries. Such is irresponsible. I've offered my help in drawing up a generalized ballot of septic, sewer, nitrogen-limited options, a septic repair fund, or even doing nothing. This simply is not the business or purview of MCU, Engineer Joe Capra, Martin County, or outside politicians up the ladder. This coastal elite is not feeling so elite, as penned by the press. But I do have a vested interest in keeping my neighborhood somewhat affordable housing. For those of us who have made our homes here for 20 to 30 years and have a history of contributing in many ways to the town of Sewalls Point. So let's vote on an unbiased ballot, do things in a normal progression, as most committees and bodies do around this country, have benchmarks, and from the ballot, have benchmarks that we will follow. unlike the half-hearted attempt in North Sewalls Point a year ago, and determine what the appropriate desired course of action really is. Results of the earlier ballot were not to be found by the current town manager. Imagine, several commissioners didn't even know it had been done. Are we being responsible here? And samples and feedback indicates that the wording was not illustrative of options available to homeowners anyway. This was conducted like a bad Marx Brothers movie. Please get back on track with the Sewell Point we all know and love. I appreciate your responsibilities. Thank you.
Ronnie Piccolo?
Ronnie Piccolo, I live on Lucindia Drive. I would like to see a deletion from the agenda tonight. 11B, South Sewalls Point Centralized Sewer Preliminary Design Plan funded by the American Rescue Plan. The way I see it, the public was not given good enough information, and only one commissioner knows what would go on with Martin County Utilities. I propose that this does not go forward until we have Sam Amerson come and talk to all the commissioners, so you're all playing on the same page, what the knowledge is about Martin County Utilities' plan for sewer, and the public will also have the hearing that they deserve to get this information. I find it very frustrating that only one person knows the actual truth and wouldn't have a discussion regarding it. We already have a survey. I just asked the people who did the comprehensive plan. There was a question on that plan having to do with sewers. Only 106 people answered, but of the 106 people who answered, 84 said they are happy with their septic tanks. Is that good enough information for you? So the town has spoken. I really feel that it would be a disservice to us all if Sam does not get an invitation from this commission to make a presentation. They are the only shooting match. We either do Sam or we do Martin County Utilities, or we don't go forward with the sewer. Everybody should be on the same page. I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, that's all the public comment sheets I have on non-agenda items. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? I'm sorry, Town Manager Berger, your light's been on for a while, and I didn't get back to you.
Oh, that's quite right, sir. I wanted to request from the mayor and commission that we remove item 12B, as the building official is absent today, medical emergency within his family. That will be postponed to a meeting of your choice.
Okay. Commissioner Campo?
Yeah, in an attempt to consolidate discussions, I'd like to, we don't have a lot of time, we've got a new manager coming in. I'd like to delete items 12D, 12E, and 12F. I think they might be worthy of discussion down the road, but I think it's going to be a big pit of discussion that we don't come up with anything conclusive. So I would like to move that those items be deleted, and I can go ahead and formalize the motion to delete 12D, E, and F, and 12B, and then I'll have comments if I can get a second.
Mr. Mayor. Sorry to interrupt. I would refer back to the attorney on items E and F, the RFPs. I believe the commission needs to finalize the RFP, even if that is to close it out, so we can formally close it out at this point, and then you would be able to bring that back up and allow your next town manager to work through the process.
And I believe that's listed on the recommendations portion of those items, that we can make those decisions.
Yes, sir. And of course, whatever you'd like to do, but at this point, it has to be closed out because it's been open, and we have a determination date.
So we can disposition those in about 30 seconds each, right?
Yes, sir. And I'll refer back to the attorney in case I missed anything.
Okay. So I think where we are is to remove 12B and 12D. Do you want to amend your motion?
Sure, I'll amend my motion, 12B and 12D. And I'm going to have another motion after that, but let's just
I'll
stick up
second
with those.
B and D.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
I'm sorry. I'm in favor.
Commissioner Fender,
Yes.
Blanked out.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yeah.
Mayor Tompak.
Okay.
Yes.
And again,
Mr.
so
Campo?
I would like to also, now in a separate motion, move that we delete 11B in a suggestion to allow the county rep and our new interim manager to weigh in on the ARPA funds. So I would move that we table that to the next meeting.
I'm sorry, which one?
11D.
11.
11B,
D.
the discussion of taking money from the federal government to plan for a septic to sewer design.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I will not be voting to remove that. I want to keep that on. We've been talking about it. We've been transparent about, we can talk about the American Rescue Plan Act money also. I mean, it'll be voted on one way or another, but I want to leave it on the agenda. So. I want to leave it on the agenda.
Okay, and I'll put in my 2 cents as well. I'd like to leave it on the agenda, and the reason I do is because, you know, we were also talking, or we will be talking on item 12C, which is on balloting for the South Sewalls Point centralized sewer. We want to, and I don't want to discourage that item, because if that's what the commission wants to do, I don't have a problem with it, but I think in order to, you know, put together the proper wording for that kind of a ballot, we really have to take the next step for this preliminary design plan so we know what Martin County can or can't offer us. So if it's the commission's desire to remove 11B, we ought to consider removing 12C from the discussion at the same time. I think that only makes sense.
So we can call the question.
Excuse me?
We can call the question.
Yeah.
So just want to restate the motion and add the title of the topic in addition to the lettering.
Okay, so I would like to move that we table until the next meeting when we have an interim manager seated, which hopefully will be 2 weeks. Item 11B, which is the borrowing or the using of the ARPA funds to design a sewer system.
It's a preliminary design, correct? Not a full,
Preliminary design.
yeah.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. This is a preliminary design, and this was as a result of your meeting with Martin County Utilities. It was the same basic meeting that the previous Mayor Mayfield had with the utilities. Joe Capper's in the audience. He can speak to the details if you like, but it is absolutely the first step in order to also try to get Martin County Utilities to commit to you what their funding contribution is going to be. They are reluctant to go that far, as you know, being in the meeting, without having the plan.
And I think that's kind of a critical next step. You know, we've had a lot of, you know, a lot of discussion, some of it acrimonious discussion, divisive, and we're really not to the point where we've got a plan to put in front of the residents so they can say yay or nay. Well, we can't get there until the preliminary design plan is developed, because Martin County will not tell us yay or nay, you can do this, you can't do it. I mean, obviously, if it comes back and they say, hey, the only thing we can do here is a 100% vacuum system, it's dead, it's gone. Okay, I think we all, well, I'm not going to say we all agree on that, but I think that's what we essentially agree on. So I think, and that's fine, if we want to put it off, I don't have a problem with that, although, once again, we're kicking the can down the road another month, when it's going to take at least 3 months to put this together, and of course, we're going to have the additional discussion. But it makes no sense to me to talk about balloting because you don't have the information to even develop any kind of ballot language because you don't have any idea what you're going to do. It doesn't make sense. I think Commissioner Campo is first.
Yep. So we have special meetings as workshops all the time. That's just a couple lines that April adds to the advertisement. I'm not saying that we never discuss this. I'm saying that we are about to have a new town manager, and Michelle Berger is advocating for a policy that I think should be kept up to the next generation, and that should be something that they have ownership in, that they help design, and that then they are accountable. And there are folks that are out there that I think that we're looking at that have got a lot more experience in using the ARPA funds. This is a commission decision. This isn't anything that we need to prolong other than the 2 weeks. And so that's my suggestion, is that we have a new interim manager, and I think all three folks that we're looking at have got a lot more experience working with the ARPA funds. And I'm not asking that we don't talk about this. We just table it for 2 weeks.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, just to clarify, it's not the town manager advocating for that. The 3 commissioners before wanted that. So I just want to clarify that. It's misleading to say that. I just said I think it should stay on the agenda. It's something I support. I agree with the mayor. We need to get the numbers so that we can get some accurate numbers for the balloting. So
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yes, just to be fair, I could do 12C with or without a yes or a no vote either way. I could still explain what I'm looking to do either way, so.
And Town Manager Berger.
I just wanted to reiterate, this is your plan. This is your discussion. It was asked at a meeting when I wasn't at the meeting to be put onto the agenda by the mayor. It's put onto the agenda. And regardless of the misrepresentation of what are the truth here, the town manager does not lead the policies within the town. You do. And so certainly, this moves forward regardless. And right now, the 2 gentlemen that you have for interim, both are quite qualified in both of those categories, ARPA or CARES, and myself and my finance director both worked with them. So we have the same abilities. So I appreciate the conversation and moving forward, but understand this is not my project, basically, that I'm asking you to move forward.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo.
Aye.
Commissioner Fender,
No.
Commissioner Mayfield,
No.
Mayor Tompak.
No.
Mr. Mayor, I think you need to, was that one item that he wanted off, or?
Well,
Are you taking
I think
both?
we had already voted to remove 12D and 12B, and the motion was to remove 11B, and that was defeated.
Okay, so just 11B, and we're keeping the other item on?
Well, the motion didn't include the balloting portion, so unless there's another motion for the balloting portion, but I don't think there needs to be.
Okay, making sure, thank you.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the agenda based on the changes?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
No.
Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompak.
Yes. Okay, first, next item is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, or do we have any questions? Commissioner?
Yeah, I'd like to pull the financials, and if it would please the commission, we can move for the consent agenda to be approved with everything other than the financials.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Campo, you've got the ball on the financials. Thank you.
Okay. I think it's a good time to ask this question because there's something that I'm seeing on page 6 of the financials, which is tab 6, number 6, page, and that's legal counsel litigation. We spent $2,533 on litigation, and I didn't know we were involved in any litigation. So can someone enlighten me?
I believe that's the PBA matter.
So our work with the police union is considered litigation?
Yes, because it's a proceeding in front of the Public Employee Relations Commission.
Okay. So just because I was on the commission when we were served with litigation papers and the commission didn't know for months, and because we've got a town manager leaving out, and I'm just trying to be a good steward, I'd like to ask both Michelle and the town attorney, are we involved in any other litigation? Have we received any letters of representation? We should know about that, and I think as Michelle moves on, you know, we might not have that access, so I wanted to just ask that question. Has anyone sent us a letter of representation in an action against the commission? And is there any other active litigation other than the helicopter thing that I think is kind of long?
That's the only other one.
Okay. Are you aware of anything?
Yeah. Mr. Mayor? So we recently, with the auditors, had to report a list of litigation that was within the last year that is still pending. So off the top of my head, and it may just be, I mean, I think some of these are just housekeeping issues, just
Right. So
small ones that you're not, considering. But we have outstanding litigation with Tony Lagana, who has been,
So, yes, the town had a code enforcement matter, 2 cases against Mr. Lagana. The town prevailed in both cases in front of the special magistrate. Mr. Lagana has appealed both of those decisions to the 4th District Court of Appeals. Both sides have finished filing their briefs, and we're waiting for an order from the court.
Are you aware of anything else?
that's all.
Yeah.
well,
I-
we had an ethics charge against the commission that was won, and that was considered litigation that was absorbed through the insurance that the commission has.
And those are generally considered confidential unless they want to be disclosed publicly. So ethics complaints are generally considered confidential until such time as they've been resolved.
So that one has been disposed, but the code violation litigation is still active?
That one has been disposed, but there are some other, 2 others that have recently been filed.
Two new.
Two other what?
2 new ethic charges.
2 new ethics charges.
Oh, really?
Also, it's going to be fine.
So
But it
What
will
is
cost
normally,
money.
I mean, when I'm on a board, I'm on a lot of boards, and I'm a risk manager, and I get paranoid when there's litigation if I'm on the board and I'm not notified. So I guess the question is, what normally is the responsibility for you or the staff to inform boards that there's active litigation or letter of representation, or I don't think ethics violations, unless they're,
Right, to me,
come to full, they come full circle and there's a
To me,
finding.
they don't rise to the level of litigation.
Right,
It's an administrative
right.
matter. The Mr. Lagana matter definitely rises to litigation. I thought you were all aware of that. If not, I apologize. But we did have those hearings probably 3 or 4 months ago.
Code enforcement hearings, not commission hearings.
Code enforcement.
Right, okay, I wasn't aware.
Okay, apologize.
But I would just rather know before Michelle and Cheryl move on that, what the passwords are, what the,
Right.
where the candy bars are kept for the 3 o'clock hunger strikes and things like that, you know.
We do have those.
We have those?
We have those, yes.
I know. Okay, since I saw that issue, it rang a bell. We actually came into a Sewalls Point meeting, and the town manager at the time, which was not Michelle, said, now we have another meeting. And we went into the conference room, and there was a court reporter and an attorney from the insurance company saying that someone had sued us, and she had tried to resolve it on her own. And that was the time that we learned about it for the first time. So that was a game changer for me. I'd rather ask the question and know about it and move on. So then, if it would be okay, I would move that the financials be approved as written.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tom Heck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bursman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Yes.
And along those lines, are you going to add something to comments later for an upcoming meeting for the commission? No, I believe there should be an update for the commission on the PBA issue before the end of the month.
Yes.
So I'm asking for that during comments, staff comments, I'll be fine. Okay.
Okay, the next item is first reading of ordinance number 440, comprehensive plan text amendment. I'll first request the town attorney to read the title of the ordinance into the record.
Let me get it back there.
Let's get that come up on the screen.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Oh, sure, hers is a lot lighter.
Ordinance number 440 is an ordinance of the town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending the text of the comprehensive plan in accordance with the evaluation and appraisal review year-based amendments, providing findings, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, providing for applicability, providing for filing with the Florida Department of State, providing for filing with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, providing for an effective date, and providing for adoption.
Okay, I don't know, what's the pleasure of the commission? Do we want Bonnie Landry to go through the presentation again? It's really up to you.
I think, Mr. Mayor, you can refer back to your LPA meeting,
Okay,
as long as the commission is comfortable with that, and in your motion.
okay. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I'm comfortable with just referring to the LPA meeting, and if there's no other discussion, I would make a motion to approve. Do I need to recite the same thing that was up there before?
Yes, but I
Okay.
do have a statement either before or after the motion.
Okay, if someone could pull
Well, I
that
think
up.
we probably need to open the public hearing
Okay, you're
first.
Oh, you're right.
So let's open the public hearing, and we do have a couple of public comment forms. And town
Do
attorney,
I speak first or after?
after, I think,
Okay.
because we're going to refer to the earlier presentation. So do these folks have to be sworn in?
No, they do not.
Okay. Well, that's not unusual
Right.
in a public hearing.
Quasi judicial.
The distinction is generally in a zoning matter.
Yep.
That becomes quasi judicial. This is more of a legislative matter where you're adopting a comprehensive plan amendment. So sometimes when you get into zonings and rezonings, you have to swear people in, but this is not.
I just wanted to,
Good question.
All right, first public comment is Art Schwartz.
Art Schwartz, Lantana Lane. The comments and the views of what I have to say tonight are mine and mine only. I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone other than myself. The events of the past few months pertaining to the possible retention of Michelle Berger have been frustrating for town residents, you commissioners, and of course, Michelle Berger. It's been said that a great piece of art needs to be studied from a distance in order to ascertain the true talents of the artist. So it can be said for relationships in the workplace. Sometimes those closest with someone are the last to recognize flaws. While on many occasions this body of commissioners has stated that the town manager only does what we tell her to do, the town residents of Sewalls Point have seen a much different picture. Once held to account by a simple petition, Michelle Berger decided the town has recognized her flaws and decided to move on. Instead of leaving with polish and class, she's badmouthed our residents, misinformed in the newspaper, and perhaps to other public administrators that may soon be possible replacements for the position. We're not misinformed. We just see a wolf in sheep's clothing. So now, our town manager gives you 600 pages as she's walking out the door. Please don't bother to tell me that each of you has read 600 pages of this text. I wouldn't believe it if you told me. Perhaps in the infamous words of Nancy Pelosi, when we're talking about Obamacare, you need to pass the legislation so we can see what's in it. We talk about septic to sewer. Nobody has given a reason why we need to convert or even consider conversion. We don't know that we've been damaging our waterways. Commissioners, I urge you to withhold any action on this monumental agenda. This important work should be left to the incoming manager, whether the temp or whether permanent, and also include a small group of concerned town residents. They should be part of this process. There's no legitimate reason for you to take action on this agenda at this time. There's no transparency, there's no urgency for action. It needs to go away, just like Ms. Berger will. And frankly, if you support the agenda, you might want to consider going away also. Thank you.
Ken Strick.
Tough act to follow. Actually, I wasn't even here on this item, but since I sat on the other items, I just wanted to raise one question, really. As Commissioner Fender, I thought you asked a very good question at the LBA meeting. Unfortunately, the town attorney wasn't there. You specifically asked, and just to be clear, I don't have a position on the comp plan either way. I just thought it was a very good question. If it wasn't, peaked questions in my mind. You asked, what is the requirement to do the comprehensive plan in the first place? And you really didn't get an answer. There was some discussion about, well, it has to be done because we got to get the grant money. Well, that's not the reason to do the comp plan. So I think, I hope maybe you use a little bit of time to talk to your town attorney. Like, is there a legal requirement sitting here today to pass a comprehensive plan? What happens if you don't? I heard it was 7 years. It's 7 years and we're past that. Okay, what happens? Or is the town going to be fined? Is someone going to jail? What is the reason? In other words, what is the real reason to do it today? And then the other thing I would ask that I think you should all talk about, maybe you've already talked about this, I don't know, but what is the purpose of adjusting the comprehensive plan? What is the mission that what's the problem you're trying to solve here? I've only lived here 2.5 years. I love this town. Like, it was one I've lived all my life, which originally was Hollywood, Florida. And this has a lot of similarities to that. I grew up in the 70s. So the question is, what problem are you trying to solve? My 2.5 years of walking River Road, every morning with my dog, I've never heard anybody resident go, boy, we really need to improve our comprehensive plan. That's really top of mind for me. So that's really, like I said, I just think you've asked good questions. I don't think you got a good answer. I know your town attorney is here, and I think that's really where you should focus. What's the problem you're trying to solve? If the specific problems is ordinances, you can adjust this. If you think you need to allow to have 2 people living 2 detached homes, you can do that with an ordinance. You don't need to do a 600-page plan. And again, I'll leave it up to you to decide what's right for the community, but it was a good question. I think it deserves a good answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Those are the only public comment requests I have, so I'll close the public hearing and ask for any additional discussion among the commission. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I don't have any additional discussion. I was just going to make the motion to approve the, if somebody could pull up that long, I wish I could say I can remember off the top of my head, but that long thing that Bonnie had put up, approve the comprehensive plan. I need a cheat sheet.
Currently, you just need to approve the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Because you're ready.
So, okay.
So just
Oh, because that was just for the
440.
planning?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 440.
Is there a second? Pass the gavel to Vice Chairman Kurzman.
Mr. Mayor, there is additional language before you run your final vote. You may want to amend.
I just wanted to read this into the record to support what the commissioner said. The comprehensive plan has been on the website for 16 weeks. It was first posted on October 12th. We posted the data. October 26th, we posted 4 of the goals, objectives, and policies. November 16th, the 6 remaining goals, objectives, and policies. Minor changes from the version that's been up on the website since November 16th. I just wanted to clear that up for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to second the motion to approve the ordinance 440. Any additional,
April, a vote, please?
Oh, no, there was a discussion from the attorney.
I didn't see.
So,
I'm sorry, County Attorney?
just a little bit of the history, and Bonnie, jump in if you need to. So as Bonnie said, the state law for decades has required that towns have up-to-date comprehensive plan. Sewalls Point's comprehensive plan is, I think, over 30 years old. So we are been out of compliance with state law for a long time. That could jeopardize any time you do a rezoning or any other land use activity that you take because your comprehensive plan has not been in compliance. The state has required various elements to be included in the comprehensive plan, most recently the economic development component. So they require housing elements. Much of that 600 pages, and I'm not sure what percentage-wise, is required by another organization, by the state government, the legislature. They say this is what must be in every comprehensive plan in the state of Florida, every little community, every big community. What the content is different by community, as Bonnie indicated. What works in Pensacola may not be the same thing that works in Miami or that works in Sewalls Point. Every community is different, and every community tailors that comprehensive plan. But what I think really triggered this was maybe a year and a half ago, we got a letter from the state that said you're out of compliance. And if you don't come into compliance within, I believe, at that point, it was less than a year, we got an extension of time to come into compliance. So we're on their radar. They know that we're not in compliance, which leads to potential challenges to any future land use, rezoning actions that you take, because now the state's aware that our comprehensive plan is woefully outdated. So that's the purpose. Whether you agree with the content of it is different. Again, your comprehensive plan will be different than Stewart's comprehensive plan, different than Martin County's comprehensive plan, but every government has to have a comprehensive plan. I think what Bonnie referred to before, the state also then provided a grant so that you can perform the comprehensive plan. So the secondary risk, which to me is less significant, is money, but it's just money in the sense of, the other one could impact your ability to approve residents' petitions to subdivide their land, to rezone their land. Whatever resident may want to do with their property rights is potentially stymied because there's no current comprehensive plan. Bonnie, did I leave out anything significant?
Nope, you covered it.
Town Manager?
Just to build, we actually are in that punitive stage now where because we are so far behind, the state has let us know we cannot make changes through our comprehensive plan. So for instance, if the commission in the future wanted to do any annexations or changes, major changes, that would not be able to occur until this is complete. And once again, as a commission, you do not have to take every single suggestion that the state may come back and offer you. As a commission, you could say thank you for that suggestion and adopt the pieces that you like.
Mr. Fender?
So I think we're going to call the question here in a minute, so I feel compelled to make a statement, mainly because I feel like I'm going to be the split vote again on this. I didn't realize I was going to be the split vote last time, but for those in the audience who asked me a few questions in the break, I just want to say that originally, I did not vote for this project in the beginning. I really, for a cost savings perspective, I didn't think we needed the comp plan. I thought we had one and it was sufficient. But in general, my entire position here on the dais has been for 6 years to protect our property values, to enhance the community within which we live, to ensure that we have the guideposts and the strategies to move forward in that capacity. And the fact that we now have expended the effort to enhance our comp plan seems like work well done. We may not all agree on everything that's in that comp plan, but we have the ability to modify it. We have the ability to make a blueprint for what we want our community to be, and I think that against my better judgment, we have that, or we have the beginnings of it. So I applaud Ms. Landry for her hard work and her team, and I'll be voting in favor, as I did before. I thought about it for a while there, but I just want to make it clear that the reason we do work in this town is to make our town better. And the work we have outlined in the comp plan is a blueprint for making our town better together as citizens and neighbors. So, you know, I sense that some of the vitriol or the pushback on the comp plan is politicized, is based on this single concept of we want to keep the prices in our homes down. We don't want infrastructure to make our town better. We certainly don't want you to hook a sewer system up to our house and not pump our sewage into our yards. For me, we live in the 21st century. And so our town will have infrastructure eventually. And our blueprint for doing that is outlined there. So I will be voting in favor of Ordinance 440.
Ask a call roll.
Take a vote, please.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompak?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Nay, you voted against it in the OPA.
Yeah, that one of which was.
Let the record reflect the gavel's been passed back to the mayor.
Problems, that's it.
All right, so that brings us down to old business. 10A is the vulnerability assessment, and Town Manager Berger, could you lead us in on this one?
Sure, let me get to,
Not much interest on the comp plan, huh?
do you want your presentation now, or? No. Not for this one? Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'll defer the opening conversation to your town engineer, Joe Capra.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll make this brief. As you can tell, my memos, I tried to make them concise tonight. I knew you had quite a few things to go over. And I just want to make sure you understand that we've been talking about vulnerability assessment, stormwater master plan, in many topics over the last several months. The BMAP is one of those that's out there. Resiliency is an item that we have to approve a grant we're going to get for that. A comprehensive plans entails items that will be covered under the stormwater master plan, and of course a strategic plan. So what I'm proposing here is obviously to get started on this stormwater master plan, vulnerability plan. Basically, I tried to combine the two of them to save you money and to use the vulnerability money to pay for a good portion of it. The second thing, I think it's important to recognize, besides having these plans done and completed, we are required, probably in June, to have the NPDS 20-year stormwater needs analysis. And that's going to tell us, it's going to tell the state what projects we hope to be using this money for, or needing money for, so they can plan to hopefully provide us funding back to the town. So it's kind of important, as you know, we've been doing a lot of these stormwater projects, and also the septic to sewer program, is to try to get as much funding from whether it's the state government, the federal government, as we can, and to do that, we have to comply with these plans. And so tonight, I'd like approval to move forward with this resiliency and stormwater master plan. It's going to be something that'll be many public meetings. It'll be something that'll address historical reviews of things. It'll talk about flood hazard mapping, a variety of things. It'll talk about what sea level rise will do to our community. It'll also get into, if necessary, we need to adjust any town land development codes and building department regulations. But probably the most important item that is short-term is, again, this 20-year stormwater needs analysis that the state has asked us to put together. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Commissioner Campo.
Yeah, again, this is another item that I think can wait until the interim manager is involved. I would ask what the eventual product, what the work product that you would come up with, what, is that just, again, a plan in case sea level rises to the point that we have to do something in 20 years, or is that paving the Sewalls Point Road right now and choosing the most effective STA areas? I mean, is it a plan, or is it something that we're using to pave South Sewalls Point Road right now?
You're going to use it, first of all, let me say this probably a little more bluntly. This town is going to spend a lot of money on stormwater management. You've already started the process. And one of the things that has to happen is we need to rely on our people in the community to do some improvements on their properties eventually. We're not making them do it, but eventually they'll be doing those things. And I think we need to look foresight of what some of those ideas are, and so that you're prepared to say, yes, that's acceptable. So to answer your question, it will do some of what you're talking about, because we'll know, we'll look at things like what is easier or harder for you to maintain. We just did a system, for example, that had a combination, what we call a treatment train, right, of exfiltration pipe, underground piping, and so forth. We did a stormwater treatment area, something that you can see. One of those is a little easier to maintain than the other, okay? And so we will make from this study, we'll determine that. We will also look at what will be the impact of sea level rise. They require us to study what will happen in the year 2040 and what will happen in the year 2070. That's already in the grant that they've given us, okay, that we need to do that. And we'll be able to tell you, this is what's predicted. Now, I can't tell you, again, these are predictions, but they've been pretty close to what we've been receiving relative to sea level rise and what we've been encountering. We just went through some king tides last month. Fortunately, the system that we put in place worked, okay? Don't get me wrong, there will be a surge someday from a hurricane that'll exceed that capacity. So the intention, we tend to get into these discussions and we talk about, for example, stormwater retrofits. We talk about, people need to realize there's a level of service we're trying to accomplish. We don't solve every problem. We don't, we have issues in this project that we just recently did. There are certain things that happen to people's properties. We want to make sure they understand this is what's expected, that basically there's going to be some water on your properties. There's no way you can raise all these houses above the flood elevations. There's no way you're going to do that with the current taxes that you're collecting, and I don't think you want to do that. But the point is we're going to talk about all those issues in a plan, and then we're going to come up with we're going to put them in a code for you, okay? And you decide which ones of those you want to accept and which ones that you don't want to accept. But I think we need to recognize the fact there's a lot of stuff that's going to be spent on for stormwater management, and quite frankly, we're going to need a lot of grant money to help us through that. And that's first thing they're going to look at is, do you have this 20-year plan done? Do you have a code that's consistent to what you're asking for this money for? Do you have these things in place? And if you don't have them, guess what? They're going to probably look at say, well, we'll give it to the guy that does have it. And that's what they've been doing. So there's a lot of money out there now. We're trying to put ourselves in a good position to capture it, and I recommend that you do this. I don't have to spend all this money right away, but this is going to take some time to get this and get all the consensus we need from everybody.
Can I follow up? Because I'm still unclear as to how this applies to actual projects. Another thing that I'm confused about is this is a study that CapTech's going to do, correct?
This one will be done mainly by CapTech. That's correct.
So the study is estimated to cost $200,000. Why is it an estimate?
Well, because first of all, I was planning on using as much data we have from, for example, we may have some data that we'll get out of the South Sewalls Point Road phases as we move up the peninsula, for example, that I won't have to go get for this study, okay? So there'll be some of there'll be some of that information. It'll all depend on what you really want to see relative to the improvements, okay? So again, I put an estimate on there at this point. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little less, but most likely it's probably, I think I've got more than enough money into the estimate on it.
And where was this planned for in our budget? We've been talking about it for so long. Is it incorporated into our budget already?
We talked about it, it's actually in the,
So where's, like, what part of it is it, is it in our budget, Michelle?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. It's been part of what you've been talking about since the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council came before you, and you all, as a commission, worked to create the blueprint. And so that's been categorized as an item that we pursued by your direction, grant funding, which we received $100,000. And quite frankly, they're just excited that this is a town-wide resiliency project for a coastal town that they anticipate seeing some of it go underwater within the next 45 years.
Right, but,
And
right.
so your question has it been budgeted for? So yes, we did not budget $100,000 for it because we don't anticipate spending $100,000 for that this fiscal year. But it gets him started, it gets the movement happening, and it enables us next month, when we have to do our first report to Martin County on the resiliency issues that have to be reviewed and sent up to the governor's office in June of 2022. That's a mandate. When we have that, it'll show that we have the plan, that the commission said yes, and the hope, based on what we've discussed with Martin County Utilities and Martin County's Public Works Department, the hope is that Tallahassee will come back and find the low-hanging fruit, like towns like ours, and close the gap for us. So if a project is identified, and it is a resiliency project that is town-wide, we may actually get the funding to get the balance of it.
Right, so you said there wasn't 100,000 in this year's budget. Was there some money?
I believe we had 30,000 off the top of my
So
head.
is that, can you, like, direct that to me on the financial?
Sure, how about I take a pause and take a look at that?
And then the $100,000 grant,
From DEO,
right, the town has a $100,000 grant to complete the resiliency. So we've already, it says the resiliency grant is not expected to be signed until the middle of 2022. And again, I'm just looking like the urgency of doing this tonight when we're in this mode of transition, when the resiliency grant is not expected to be signed until the middle of 2022. I'm wondering why is the urgency to do that tonight?
so Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
the urgency is yours. We have committed, and we are necessitated to give an update in February. If you don't want to make a judgment call on this tonight, certainly your next town manager can pick this up and go from there. But this is not a town manager, nor is it a town engineer-led issue. This is a resiliency project that was on your blueprint that the town commission approved to move forward. And at this point in time, it actually can be paid for under your ARPA funds. So funds are available to pay for that, even if we don't get a closed gap. So this is brought to you tonight because we're trying to create a document that we have a template that we have to fill out. I sent an email on it, that we must turn into Martin County next month. And so if you want to move forward, great. If you don't, it will be delayed. It does not mean the same information won't come back. And what your next person will tell you is that it can be paid for, preferably from your ARPA funds.
Thank you, Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes. A couple things. Fundamentally, I think this is important and a good idea because one of the major issues I hear from residents are stormwater problems. And so not only that, but I recall the meetings we had and Commissioner Kurzman was trying to address this issue long ago and talk about changing the code for stormwater retention on property. Is this the kind of thing that would assist in decision-making like that and be beneficial? So besides the other advantages that have been said, this would really benefit because the commission changes out, this is the kind of document that enables government to be nimble and efficient. I hear so much talk about money. Efficient government is really a great way to save money. And so I think something like this could really add to the government efficiency. I find it odd, truthfully, Commissioner Campo, that you want to put stuff off because I feel like we have the people here now. This is regular town business. Let's be efficient. Let's get this business done. So I would support moving forward with this study. I think it's very beneficial because stormwater is such an important issue in our town.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yes, this is something we really shouldn't be waiting on at all. I can tell you right now, the road where it's raised out there, the people are delighted. We were the only ones that were dry during the last big storm. Everybody else was wet. There's like maybe one or two homeowners that needed to have their properties tweaked, which has been taken care of. It's something, this is not anything you want to put off, because the next big storm that comes through, you want to make sure the project's already starting ahead. And, as we hear over and over again, when I first came in, people were complaining about they have to drive through salt water to go to their homes, and that's just not right. And we're getting grants. There's a lot of grant money. This will bring in additional grant money sooner. This is something that's moving ahead. We already have grant money toward this right now, phases 2, 3, and we got even more grant money coming. So the projected $5 million is coming way down suddenly, and that's kind of where we want to go with this. It's, I'd love to see where we get $3 million in grants, where we're only going through and paying off $2 million. But the sooner we do this, while this is available, and it gives us more time to seek these grants. And this is really going to help us get the grants. And it shows a plan, what we're going to do. And this is something we've all decided we're going to do unanimously.
Okay, I don't see any other, Commissioner Mayfield.
I would make a motion to move forward with the study, not to exceed 200,000.
I'll second it.
Any additional discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tombeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Absolutely.
Okay, that brings us to 11A, new business, South Sewalls Point Road Resiliency Project Phase 2, Sewalls Meadow North to Riverview Drive. Mr. Capper, could you get us going on this one?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the last vote. Second of all, so as we move up the peninsula, we are trying to get all the phases in position to gather some grant money. And the first grant applications we turned in were based on HMGP, which is a FEMA grant. You already have received them in Phase 1, funds for that. And basically, they have agreed to let us move forward to what they call, in the HMGP process, the first phase of design, permitting, bidding, okay? And so they're giving us some money for that. We have a match component, but the idea is they will give us some money to start that process. Once we get done with the design, this is a final design, okay? Then we obviously will move into the construction phase. And while that design is going on, we will be pursuing other grants to try to match these grants so that we have more money, okay? So all those things are in process. I think it's important to recognize in this area, Area 2, that's between Sewalls Meadows and and basically includes, I like to include not only the road, but the subdivisions that get affected. Sewalls Meadows, okay, Oakwood, Kingston Court, Palm Road, Riverview Drive, and Pineapple Lane. That's the area, and there are some outfalls in those areas, and we need to go acquire some land. Hopefully, we will find some property owners that will let us have a piece of their property, like we were going to talk about in Phase 3. And when that happens, then we will have that's the first next step that I need to be doing once, hopefully, you would approve this process. And then I will begin to complete the design and permitting. And then after that, obviously, we'll go to bid and we'll get into the next phase. So it's an iterative stage, okay? You have to go through the phase, you have to go through the design phase before you can go through other things. And obviously, I don't want to start the design phase until I have some comfortable people that are willing to let us use a portion of their land for stormwater. We will do the same concept. If you look at all of these, at this point, we've updated these numbers in the last 30 days based on current prices. And I think all of you know, all of our construction costs have gone up. The supply chain has affected us in just about every category. And so basically, if you'll note, most of them I put the $4.4 million is what we expect the cost to be. That'll depend on what we buy the land for. That'll depend on stormwater treatment, and as a supply chain, we get more items in the supply chain, maybe some of those items like pumps and generators will come down a little bit, but the fact of the matter is, I put in the, but then we've also got new, we have new funding sources from the federal government coming down, so I'm thinking the prices are going to stay high for a while. All I'm trying to say is, we're trying to keep moving along through the phases to get the whole South Sewalls Point and North Sewalls Point completed.
Mr. Mayor, this is a victory lap for you and the commission. Around this time last year, we had a special meeting, if you remember, where we discussed and adopted the LMS, the Local Mitigation Strategy Plan that Martin County produces, publishes, and we establish a ranking system. And so I'd like to congratulate Joe and a little bit of our partnership. We were assigned to that committee, and we were able to fight to get these projects prioritized. And so as you're seeing, we're getting these projects, especially these top 4, funded very quickly. It's coming in. But this also has a lot to do with the fact that you came together on that special meeting and you had adopted the plan. And so congratulations to you. And on this particular project, we didn't expect Phase 2 to come in this year, actually. And so here you have another $90,000 towards this plan. So congratulations.
Commissioner Campo.
Congratulations, it's 90,000 of 4.4 million, so.
I tried to tell you, it starts, I know those numbers don't look significant.
Yeah.
But you have to realize what the 90,000 is based on. It's based on a $1.8 million grant we
Right.
intend to get.
Right,
Okay?
so, yeah,
it's-
I'm just going to, if I could just have free flow, if it would be okay, Mr. Mayor, because I'm just throwing this out there. First of all, I think we should start off by calling this Sewalls Meadow to Pineapple and get away from Phase 1, Stage 1, Level 1. I think everyone knows where Sewalls Meadow is, and everyone knows where Pineapple Lane is.
That's what it is? I don't think that's what it is.
It is.
Pardon?
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought we were jumping that over to.
Right, but this is Phase 2.
It's 3.
Yeah. So, and that was my next question is, to me, the Homewood section, which I guess is Phase 3, we've got 2 options to purchase STAs, and we've already done some work on, and to me, that seems to be the part of the road that gets flooded quickest. Now, I'm not an engineer, so I could see where you might want to go Phase 1, 2, 3, 4, but there also could be an argument to going after the area that's flooding the worst, especially if we have 2 options. And, does it make sense to have, Phase 2 and 3, and how are we going to go about doing this in proper order?
You made that easy for me.
Well, good. I said it's a free flow of information. I
Because
wasn't.
we have been working on Phase 3.
But we have-
It's on the agenda more, but I just wanted you to know. It is the next one
I know Michelle's way of doing it, just do it, so I know that's her energy level, just get her done, so I hear that. But what order had you anticipated, and what's happened with those options? Do we still have those options with those landowners?
Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, this is Phase 2, and I think that's been part of the problem, is that we end up talking about all of them at once, and so I have been methodical in trying to break them up for your best understanding and mainly for the residents. So what's in front of you now, and I have it highlighted, the location specific where you first started talking about is the Sewalls Meadows Way. But we are going to speak to the actual questions that you're asking just a little bit down when we get to Phase 3. This item that we're asking you to potentially approve is for the design only for Phase 2. Right. Phase 2.
Phase 2.
Yes, it was going to be done after the
Planning only,
but it's happening quickly.
Yeah,
Iteration.
and it can't, they are awarding it, and again, we believe this is happening in a great time, because when and if you approve this item, it actually gets added again to the documentation we have to provide next month, and then in June to the governor, as a resiliency project. Any gaps may be funded. So, no construction here, solely design. And then we are ready to talk about Phase 3. If you can, be patient and just get to that item on the agenda. Be appreciated.
But Phase 2 will follow Phase 3, so you know.
Phase 2 will follow Phase 3.
In the sequence of
Yes,
construction.
we followed the commission's direction to do the worst part first.
You talked about branding, and that's what your first comment was about.
And then the town attorney, the current status of the options that we have with, I think it's 98 and 100.
That's in Phase 3.
That's in Phase 3.
But my question is, how valid are our option rights? I think the year has expired, correct?
I think it has, Joe, it hasn't.
We can
Yeah.
discuss in Phase 3 if you like.
Yeah, I can tell you the status of that in Phase 3. When you want me to go to Phase 3, I'll go to Phase 3.
Now, let's finish up Phase 2. Commissioner
No, we're
Mayfield.
working on.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to move forward with design and permitting of Phase 2.
I would like to second it.
Any additional comments? Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo. Commissioner Fender,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us up to 11B, and we do have a public comment on that before we get rolling. Ronnie Piccolo, please. Joe, don't go away, please.
Don't get comfortable.
Ronnie Piccolo, Via Lucindia. I'm kind of baffled. The original intent of my comments before was to get a consensus to have Sam come to inform everyone about the rules, the regulations, and the restrictions, or the positives, having to do with Martin County utilities. Frankly, I am more informed than any of you sitting there. It took me 3 weeks to put that email together, which was sent to all of you discussing what Martin County Utilities' plan is, and they are the only shooting match in town. I am getting complete resistance here from having a discussion to invite Sam, which tells me as a resident there's no transparency here at all. 4 of you have no idea truly what the reality is on Martin County Utilities' side. And if you do not invite him, you are proving to the residents in the town, particularly me, that there is no transparency, that you've all, I take that back, that most of you have made a decision and you don't want to hear what the reality is. I've been told by some of the commissioners, because I've spoken to every one of you individually, we all want information, but when push comes to shove, you don't do it. What is the problem? Sam is more than willing to come here. All you have to do is call him. Let the residents and the 4 of you know exactly what the parameters are. If you let this fall through the cracks, you are proving the frustration that we as residents feel. Thank you very much.
Please stay after if you can. Ms. Piccolo, I'd like to chat with you. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe, would you like to go ahead and introduce this item as well?
Okay, so what we're going to talk about is actually the
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
to the right program. South Sewalls Point Centralized Sewer Program. And what I would like to make sure everybody understands is we have sat down with the county utility department, as we've done throughout the whole process, and we have been listening to the public on what they prefer relative to sewer service. And what I pointed out last time is we have a very good success story in North Sewalls Point Road, in North Sewalls Point. And we were able to get a grant up there that gave us the seed money. We put in low-pressure force mains. We have up there sewer mains that are gravity. We have sewer mains we have lift stations. All those things came together, and we were able to put together that project fairly inexpensively for 200 residents up there. We have a great success story in how many people have hooked up. So what we would like to do in South Sewalls Point, which is a little contrary to what the county is preferably to do, they would like to do a vacuum system. In the vacuum system, we will all have to hook up, no matter what the condition of your lines are. Not that you have to hook up, but you will have to pay for the system. And so what we've asked them to do is to look at the consideration, give the same consideration in South Sewalls Point that they did in North Sewalls Point, which was a combination of gravity grinder systems. Now, they have certain criteria that they have when they will allow grinder systems. And for example, there are 657 connections in South Sewalls Point compared to the 200 we have up in North Sewalls Point, okay? We have certain areas in South Sewalls Point that have dry sewer lines that are most likely in good condition. Some of them won't be, but most of them will be in good condition that we would like to use and hook them up, and that's gravity systems, okay? And then on top of that, that would then allow the criteria where they like to stay under 300 connections in an area for grinders. So the reason why we are waiting, and this was a recommendation by Mr. Amerson as well as Mr. Donaldson, is to do this study and see what the study says relative to the best way providing service in South Sewalls Point. We will have to, in that study, consider grinders, gravity, and as well as vacuum. And if the numbers and everything works to our advantage, which seems to be wanting a grinder and gravity, they will accept that, of course. But they're not going to accept it until the study is done. We are proposing to use one of their vacuum sewer design companies that to do this study, because they rely quite a lot on that engineering firm. The second thing is what we found is we cannot even get a lot of grants without this study being done, because it tells whether we go to finance it or whether we go and get grants. They like to know that the system is one that is viable for the residents in a good in an area of like 657 residents. So, anyways, having said all that, what we would like to do is to get the study done so that when we complete the study, then we will know. We'll show it to the county. The county will be actively involved in it, and we can say, okay, this says that we can go either one. And we seem to be getting an indication from our residents that they don't want a mandatory hookup program. They would rather do the grinder system in lieu of the vacuum system. So that is where we're at. I mean, until we do the study, they're not going to make a decision on it. If Sam comes in here today, I'm pretty sure he's going to tell you, with the number of connections, we prefer you do the vacuum system. And if
Sorry about that, folks. Well, what I was going to say, Joe, I think you've given us a good summary of that meeting. And one of the things we've been discussing, over the past year is, what can the county contribute to this, And we've never gotten an answer from them, and we did not get an answer from them again when we went to the last meeting, and they won't give us an answer until we've done this preliminary design report. So we really are not in a position to let the residents know what our potential costs are until we do this study. This study is the critical next step.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry.
just a point of reflection. March 6th, which was a Saturday this year, that was the last time that Sam Emerson came and gave a presentation to you, the commission, and we did it on a Saturday so that we could invite the general public who typically couldn't make it during the week. And that was very nice of him to come on a Saturday morning, and he gave the presentation. Most of the presentation at that time was around the vacuum system. If you'd like, I can pull it up. It's a public record. I can show it again. But as you know, we have been driving to get away from using that system so that the availability of infrastructure that we currently have can be used. And so it reduces the burden on any of the fee payers, and it makes it more acceptable, given the guidelines and boundaries that you have given staff based on the feedback you've gotten from residents.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I just want to say that I agree with the mayor's comments, that this study is the key to really making a decision. I believe that. And to the residents' comment about being transparent, and having someone come in before, the conversation is too speculative at that point. It involves ifs, it involves too many variables, which I think leads to confusion and frustration on everybody's parts, the residents and the commissioners. So this is a way to get harder information so that the best decision can be made. So that's my opinion.
Commissioner Campo.
To show the 115,000 to the 115.3. I'm confused on the memo, how you have the schools, point, businesses, and town hall, and the south schools, point, septic, sewer conversion. Why are those attached?
Yeah, I apologize, I thought I was writing memo on septic sewer. And so, can everybody hear me? I guess I'm the one that lost. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
No?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. You're welcome. So there's two parts to septic to sewer that we technically are working on, okay? The first part of my memo talked about the commercial area, which the town hall is located within. We already have a grant to provide septic to sewer to this area. As you know, in what we did in North Sewalls Point, we brought the line across the street. And so that's here. We just now have to hook up these buildings, okay? The first part of the memo was to tell you the status of that project. That project, just so everybody's clear, is technically a town project. You will kind of have to manage those funds, and so what we've talked to the grant. DEP is the grant provider. It's a state appropriation grant, but DEP manages it. Okay. So to make a long story short, there are 3 commercial buildings and town hall. Okay. And so first thing we need to do, in my estimation, is to find out if everybody's ready to hook up. Not meaning, are they willing to hook up? That's all the buildings. And then from that, then we design the system, which we've already done a preliminary design. We've used that to get the grant funds, and so we have to finalize that design. And then when we get done with that, and we go to construction, and certainly we'll talk to you about this through the whole process. And then we go to construction, and then once we certified complete, then the way the grant is written right now, basically each building would get $35,000 towards the money they're going to invest in here. So it's important, first of all, that we get the commercial businesses, buildings, to agree to work with us on this, because you don't want to go out and spend money designing something for them, and quite frankly, we won't get reimbursed unless they do hook up, okay? So essentially, that's the first thing, is to get their interest. So that's the first septic to sewer project for the future, is to get that moving. The contract was signed. I think we've been waiting quite a while for that contract to be signed. It's been signed. We've actually asked for a modification to it on some deadlines, but the fact of the matter, that project is ready to go as soon as you tell me that you want me to move forward with that. And so there's agreements that still have to be made with the property owners and things like that.
Again, so the 185 is town hall and commercial buildings. The commercial buildings are going to get $35,000 each, and town hall will then get how much of the 185?
35. Everybody, we planned on 35 from everybody, and then we kind of broke it down, and then basically after that, we're not, if somebody bows out, we want to at least get service to the building, to the properties, so there'd be some money for that, and DEP said they'd be willing to let us to spend money on that. So it'll come to the town, and then we decide how much we distribute to the, I'm assuming you're going to want to at least give each of the buildings $35,000 reimbursement if they participate, and that means they could get a little more if it turns out we get less people or less buildings connecting. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I'm a little uncomfortable with how this was presented as a combination. I've been waiting, as you know, as Michelle knows, for the commercial buildings, and Kaya did a great job pulling down the 185, and we've had that So what has that got to do with this other piece, though? Why is it being combined?
It really doesn't have anything to do with South Sewell's point.
You have two pieces of paper that do two different memos?
I could have done two pieces of paper, you're right.
Right.
You're right, it's my fault, I should have done two pieces of paper.
I was just confused. I get confused easily.
And Mr. Mayor, this is why I've asked Joe to break it up into the proper voting phases. So while Joe gave this memo that gave you an update and the call for action, as you know, if we go back to the memo that is from your manager, that, let me make sure I click on the right thing, that, let me go and click on the right thing again, gives you the call to action. So the recommendation is to approve moving forward with the preliminary design at a cost of not to exceed $130,000, which, as you see in the budget impact information, will be paid for by the ARPA funds.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, I can ask more. So 130 plus 185
No.
does all of this? I'm still confused.
No, they're two separate issues.
Yeah, they're two separate projects. So the 185 is the money that we have in a grant to do the commercial work, okay?
Right, so where is that in this recommendation?
It's not. We don't need action on that today, sir. It was just an update that Joe wanted to give you. I think he believed you wanted to see that, so he wanted to give you an update on it. There's no need for a call to action.
About it in probably a year, but.
Well, we voted on it not too long ago in a
No, I know,
separate meeting.
Again, so it's, this is just really just totally different, wrong place for it.
Okay.
The 130,000 has got nothing to do with the state appropriation.
You're correct. You are correct.
Okay.
You're correct.
Finally.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yes, I think it would be very advantageous if we would invite Sam Emerson into our next meeting, whether it's a workshop. I think the public would put more of their minds at ease, and I think there's a lot of questions he could answer as the horse's mouth. I think it'd be definitely educational. He could go into a little more of explanation. I've spoken to him myself a few months back, and at the time he explained the only way he could do South Sewalls, and this is maybe 3-4 months ago, he goes strictly vacuum. That's what he told me at the time. I go, there's no way to divide it. So he said one thing then. I mean, it just to have him come in, speak to us, and maybe go into a little more of explanation of things, I don't think it would hurt, and I think people would, it's a better education if that's possible, and I would appreciate it personally.
I just want to point out, when we first started North Sewell's Point, we were told we could not have grinder systems. And if it wasn't for us pushing the county utility department to go to the grinder system, we would still be talking about the $500,000 grant. That was what gave us the opportunity, because we knew what our residents wanted. They did not want mandatory hookup. They wanted to basically hook up when their system failed. And so all I'm trying to tell you is if you talk to him today, their preference is a vacuum system. And so I just don't want to mislead these folks. We're trying to push for them to get the grinder gravity program going so that everybody can hook up when they want to, not when the county utility wants to. And so I'm just telling you that I don't have a problem. Sam's a good friend of mine. He'll come in here and tell you everything you want to hear, but it's probably going to be, this is what our commission prefers, is a vacuum system. And I know it's a great system, it's just, that is not what I heard from your residents. They don't want to be mandatorily hooking up.
Yeah, and one of the things also, when you get into vacuum system, it looks neat, and you were gracious enough to take me on a tour of North Shore and North River Shores, and when you went in, I see the expenses that's going to go in. You have to buy a house, and then you got to load it with all this equipment. It doesn't smell, but it's going to be extremely expensive. It's not cheap. It has a very big price tag, because literally, I mean, that thing goes, it's like a vacuum cleaner. It sucks everything right the heck up and to wherever it winds up going. I think the only thing, if we were to go that direction, that would be feasible for the town to keep expenses down would be strictly gravity and grinders. I don't see the other way coming in, but it still would be nice just to get acquainted, just to satisfy questions and stuff that we could ask him in addition. an education, you could say, a little bit more, if that's possible, Joe.
I already know what he's going to say, and I'll be happy to bring him along, and just so you know, I mean, everybody's going to hear that, and they're going to say, nope, there you go, we're going to have to hook up. And that's what scares me about it. But like I said, Sam will tell you the way he feels about it. You know, if you get into the vacuum system, okay, let's just think about it logically. The best place to put a vacuum system is right behind Town Hall here, okay? What I was trying to tell you, the guy designing the vacuum system can't get us to High Point probably with one system behind Town Hall. So it's going to have to go somewhere down the middle of the peninsula. I don't know if you've looked at many lots down there lately, but there's not many vacant lots. So we're going to have to find a vacant lot, and secondly, then we've got to hope that the neighbors will let us put this building there. And so those are things that you're going to run into when you start going into that program. Again, it's a great system, and I don't have a problem asking Sam to come here, but they've already told us, until we do this study, they're not going to bend on vacuum. It's going to be vacuum. That's what they've told us. That's what I heard in the meeting.
Commissioner Mayfield, by the way, that's exactly what I heard at the meeting as well. Go ahead.
Yes, you know, as everyone knows, we've talked about this topic a lot for years. I truly think we should do the study and don't take any action until we get that and then readdress it. And on that note, I'd like to approve to move forward with the preliminary design report at a cost not to exceed $130,000.
I have a second.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
No.
Commissioner Campo?
Nay.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompak?
Yes. Next, let's see, the next item is 12A. Next item is 12A, Phase 3, South Sewalls Point Resiliency Project. Mr. Capra.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So, since our last meeting, and everything Mr. Campos mentioned is correct, first of all, we are talking about the area it's pretty much between the Rio Vista subdivision and the Ridgeview Road subdivisions. So that's the phase we're going to talk about, right? We kind of talk about it as Homewood because where we're putting the majority of the stormwater is in the Homewood area where the road closes all the time, okay? So that project has been moving forward. We have just about all our permits, most all our permits. And as you know, we are doing the same type of system, stormwater treatment area. It's a treatment train, again, exfiltration pipe. We're going up into the subdivisions to capture water before it gets into the Sewalls Point Road area. We will also do things, control structures with the outfalls. We will also have pumps and a generator in that system. Again, pretty much most everything is complete, the design, and then, as you know, we had two private property owners. One was 78 and one was 80 South Sewalls Point Road. 78 was a new home that was being built, and the property owner was willing to let us use a portion of his property. And then the next door neighbor on 78, and we combined the two of them and created an outfall there. The new home property owner to the south, which is 78, basically has told us they do not want to participate any longer. And if you recall, when we first started the project, we talked about possibly just using one lot or both lots. Both lots would be preferably in the sense of, as one of the items I talked a little bit about earlier, when we do these systems, an open stormwater system is a lot easier to maintain than an exfiltration system. So our program will probably need to be now, because we don't have that second lot, and I do know Mrs. Riley has told me she's interested in still continuing with the program. She's the lot owner that we have to the north, okay?
So she's 78.
She's Yeah, she's 78.
Okay, so
Yeah, so
you
she-
said
I-
Mrs.
I-
Riley, and then you said 78.
Yeah, she's...
They're one and the same.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, she's the one that's the northernmost lot, and she is still willing to participate in the program. And again, one of my recommendations, so you hear next steps, let's confirm that, because our agreements with the landowners has expired. So they have expired because over time, we've been waiting on FEMA to get us allocation of funds. So again, so that's why and even if we weren't, the fact of the matter is the timing has not been right for the...
I'm still, again, I'm getting confused. You said someone's pulled out, but then you said Mrs. Riley at 78 is in. Who is pulled out?
That would be...
80?
Master. Yeah.
Okay, so he would be to the south?
Yeah, he'd be to the
Okay,
south. Yeah.
all right, I just want to...
Sorry.
Yeah. You call them stage 1 and stage 2, I would understand a lot more, a lot easier. Just kidding.
So,
So the fact that the master's out, there's only one game left in town? Unless we,
yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to find the game, remember? And so now we had two, and now we're down to one again. So that's where we're at, and again, we'll have some minor adjustments to the design to get it to work, but the fact of the matter is our intention is to move forward. I would hope that you'd want to continue because we have some grant funds available. And so the part of my memo tells you the grant funds that we have pending.
Your presentation's ready, if you're ready.
Okay. You want to go? Yeah. So the design funding, sorry, this is phase, let me make sure we got the right phase here. Yeah. So essentially, we've received some money, we're going to get some more money. I hate to say that, but this is phase 2. That's phase 2, so we got to go, let's go to phase.
It's like it's 4.4 million, the same for the...
Well, when I estimate them, because I don't have land yet, and I don't want to tell people.
It's the same exact price as the other...
Yeah, it's going to be about the same. It's going to be about the same. Believe me, it's...
And it's...
Yeah, it is. He has it.
Keep going. Yeah, they're going to be about the same. They're all 2,000 feet long.
That's a pretty round number for them both to come in.
But no, you have to understand, we're doing stormwater treatment areas, we're doing exfiltration, we're raising 2,000 feet of road. They're all about the same. That's what we're doing. So I hate to say it, but that's one more. I don't even know if we have phase. Yeah, I'm sorry. We got to stick with the memos that you have in front of you. Sorry. Because the phase, what we have in this grant fund, go back to the next, yeah.
What is it you're trying, this is phase 3.
Yeah, actually, the numbers are a little different than this here, but, okay, no, they're about right, okay? I'm sorry, you're about right. Basically, we have design funding, we've asked for some additional design funding because this is the phase that we only had money from the grant to do a $200,000 outfall. Remember, we got so we went back to the FEMA and said, we want you to increase that to not only an outfall, but a stormwater treatment area, and we want to raise the road. So we asked them to increase their funds. So what confused me on this is the additional funding here. So we started with $24,000. They said that they would give us another $60,000, and then it's based on a $1.6 million grant for the construction phase, okay? So that's what we have in money from federal government. And then state appropriations grant that is pending the governor's approval is another $1 million. So we have about for construction, we have about 2.6 million right now.
With a pending request for the Florida Resiliency Grant.
All right, so we have a pending request there, which will make up for most of the shortfall. So essentially, that's where we are on grant funding today. And so go back, we got to state, so the next, first before we do any more work, let's confirm that she's ready to let us acquire our land. She told me verbally she would be, okay? Then we would do some redesign, which isn't a lot of work, because again, we're just moving things over to on Mrs. Riley's property. There'll be some minor revisions to the permits, and then we will go to bid, of course. But before we go to bid, we will talk to you about it. We'll make sure everything's in order, and then you know how much money you have to put into it. Again, we hope that we will get some more grant funding on this project for resiliency money. So that's where we're at on Phase 3. So
Okay, and are we looking for a motion here to move forward with Phase 3? Town Manager?
No, sir, this was just a request from Mr. Campo to have an update on South Sewalls Point Phase 3.
Okay.
make sure he's got all his questions.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yeah, now, I see federal, it says 1,641,990. Is that the same as FEMA, which is 1,734,870?
Well, FEMA, you have to realize they add up the design money in their total grant.
That's where I said, okay, gotcha.
So
we're looking at a total of 2.734,870.
Yep, and we need to.
In grants.
Yeah, so far. We hope to get some more on the resiliency grant that's out there. So, let's get the project back on track with the property owner. Let's get the design and permitting set up. Again, and then be ready to bid. We might as well go to bid, and then you can determine where we stand on the money at that point and make sure we got money to cover this. But that's the area that does float the most, and that's the reason why it's the next phase in the process of construction.
Town Manager, you have something to add before we get additional commissioner comments?
It's really about the Resiliency Florida grant that's pending. I would say staff would love the idea of the elected officials reaching out to all of your legislative delegation, your congressmen, and really speaking about the resiliency grant application that's out there, tell the story, and that could close the gap of everything that's needed for Phase 3 and move it much quicker. Okay. And again, this is the year to do it. They will be allocating funding. And as you see, the governor has already budgeted, or the subcommittees for state appropriations has already budgeted $1 million. So that's a really good bonus for us. That's basically the legislative delegation, senators, and giving a thumbs up to the project, which then helps Florida resiliency raters see that as a good project, and we have a better chance of getting that awarded.
Commissioner Campo.
Still going back to the phases, Phase 2 got us from Sewalls Meadow to Pineapple, and then you jump to Rio Vista. What about Pineapple to Rio Vista?
Pineapple's right next to Rio Vista.
Right, well,
So we're basically taking care of the drainage on Pineapple in Phase 2, and the drainage from there north will be taken to the right.
what about between Pineapple and Rio Vista? Where is that?
That's in this phase.
Which?
Phase 3.
Phase 3,
Yeah.
okay. So why does it say Pineapple? It says Homewood, Villa Lucinda, Rio Vista.
Rio Vista is a subdivision right next to Pineapple.
Right.
Pineapple goes south to Phase
Right.
2.
Right.
Rio Vista goes north.
Okay, so really the southern border to this is really Pineapple?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. I didn't want to have any missing pieces. We've
Yeah, we don't have
been there, done that.
Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, next item is 12C, which is balloting for South Sewalls Point centralized sewer. And Vice Mayor Kurzman will lead the discussion on this one.
Yes, the way I would like to see this is each homeowner in South Sewalls Point will receive a special assessment ballot from the Supervisor of Elections from Martin County. On the ballot will be one of two ways we could do it. One would be an approximate cost to hook up the sewer through Martin County Utilities. It would also state what the finance options will be to pay over time. We will offer whatever type of system is available in each area in South Sewalls Point. If the vote is no, it's got to be a dead issue for quite a while. We can't go through this again. If the vote is yes, we will move forward. I would like to get an approximate timeline before we'd be able to get a price. I think Joe said it would be between 3 to 6 months before we could get an idea what it would cost. And the other way we could do it is just to, and I'm thinking out loud as I'm saying this, but just a simple questionnaire. If you found sewers affordable, it could be free in some cases. If you found them affordable, would you consider hooking up to sewer? Or the other question would be, the other thing would be, you could check the box that says, I am content with my current septic system. And at that point, see, we could do a preliminary that could save all this time and effort. If most people say yes, if it's affordable, I'm interested, then we look and we go full speed ahead until we get them a price. Then we come up with a second questionnaire and say, this will be the price, are you still interested? Then at this point, we know if we're going forward or not. If the majority of the people say, no, I'm not interested, I know there are people that you could pay them $5,000 to hook up the sewer, they give you the $5,000 back, and I know that's a fact. I got other people I've talked to that say, I would pay $50,000 to hook up the sewer tomorrow. So you have two different types of needs from different members of our community. I feel this is definitely the way to do it. It would be a two-step process. So the first step would be to make sure the interest is there. The second step would be to firm up and see if the cost is affordable to these people. This is something I think we should look into sooner than later, as we, instead of progressing too far down the road and spending even more into this. I would also look to help fine-tune what I'm talking about from the commission or anybody else that has input. I'm open-minded on this, and I think this would be a good solution. I think it's a way of showing our democracy in the town.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, thank you for that, Commissioner Kurzman. I have mixed feelings on the balloting in general, but I really believe that before we get the data, it would just add to confusion, even if we tried to word it right. I envision maybe some people would think it was already a done deal, then they'd get the second ballot and be like, I thought we already decided this, and vice versa, because there are a lot of people that are, doing their lives and not necessarily paying attention. So I think it would just add to an already difficult subject until we have that information. So that's just my opinion.
Commissioner Fender.
So I'm super concerned in the wording and worried about it becoming politicized. That's my big base. But we have a precedent for this, and maybe Joe can remind me. First of all, we already have a septic to sewer conversion that was super successful on the north side of the peninsula, so we should allude to that if there's any balloting at all. But in the process of deploying the septic to sewer conversion on the north side, I was surprised to learn that you actually sent out a ballot to all of the people that were affected, and you got responses back from them, and it was worded a certain way. I thought there were three choices. I think you have a copy of it somewhere in our records, but maybe you can remind me what that ballot was that went out.
We had a card, and basically it said, first of all, are you willing to hook up to sewers within 1 year, 5 years, or I'm not interested? So it was three choices, and basically that was on the ballot. And we basically, well, it was a card we had out, and we basically we had two meetings actually on a Saturday to talk to people, and they turned them in here at the meeting, or they sent them in by mail, and we had it open for about 30 days.
Do you recall roughly what kind of response you got on that activity?
Well, the majority of the people did respond one way or the other, because we have a map full of all the X's and the checks if they weren't interested in whatever. So the majority of the people did. Of the 200, I wouldn't say we had 100%, but we probably had close to at least 75% of the people that marked what they.
How many no's did you get? Roughly.
There was some no's, but it was probably under 20 for sure, 15, 20.
Well, that sounds like under 40%? I mean,
It was about under 10%.
Oh, under 10% said no.
Yeah.
And the rest were broken into, I would hook up in a year, or I would,
Yeah, they pretty much told us what their indication was. And just so you know, we had people that were pumping, so there was an urgency for those. So those people obviously they wanted to hook up right away.
So just to finish this thought, the difference between that activity is, and what you're suggesting, which is a little bit politicized, is that his was a project underway, and the question was, you have the opportunity to participate in this infrastructure if you want to. Will you or won't you? And some said no, and some said, yeah, I'll do it in a year, and I'll do it in 5 years. It's a different mindset than, we don't want infrastructure in South Sewalls Point, right? That's my concern, is that, like you said before, if this goes south, it's going to be a long time till we get the ball rolling again. And the word should say, do you want the same services that your friends have on the north side of the peninsula? You know, I mean,
I would like to...
the mandate is important, right? If you don't want to hook up, don't hook up. But to say that I can't hook up, it seems a little bit draconian.
Well, the first thing, I would not support anything that's anything that's mandated. I'm not in favor of, period. And I think we've all committed to that at one time or another, except for Kaya. She was very transparent from the beginning. She wants source, and I appreciate that. She's straightforward, and that's always a direct way to go. The other four of us have come out in this meeting on this dais and said we're not for anything that's mandated. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At this point, I would like to have by the Board of Elections put out the same piece, that not interested, within 1 year, whatever you wrote on the card, but I'd like to have it put up by the Board of Elections. And at that point, I'd be interested in seeing what the results are. And if most of the cards come back and saying not interested, I think we got to respect the people at that point. And there's a reason. Good, Mayor.
Commissioner Campo?
Let me try to bridge the gap here. I think Commissioner Kurzman has brought up an issue over many months. I think probably the ball is in your court to go visit with the supervisor of elections, do a little bit of research, and come back and present options and say, look, these are how ballot questions might be posed. Because we're talking about the same thing. We're not really making much progress. So if you were to come to the commission and say, I want to do a referendum, and this is specifically how the voting is to take place with dollar amounts, then you get an up or down vote.
I think this would be something like right here, what you see, it's on this page. It's plain and simple. Instead of saying for proposed water main assessment, it'd be for sewer hookup, against sewer hookup. And I think this would be pretty much well-defined, and the people would make up their minds. But if they say it's for, we get to move forward.
And I think, Dave, I think you're right. The only thing I think you're missing there is you're missing the top part of that ballot, which talks about what the cost is.
Correct.
Okay, and that's the part we can't fill in the blank for.
The cost on this one says between $9,500 and $10,500.
Right. Is that going to be the cost for South Sewalls Point? We don't have any idea. We don't have the preliminary design report. We don't have what the Martin County Utilities can do for us.
But you could have three different questions. You could say, would you be willing to do it at $9,000? Would you be willing to do it at $12,000? Would you be willing to do it at $15,000? And it would be some gauge. See, the question here is, are we hearing what the community is saying? And what are we doing about it? And I think that helps, show the public that we're listening. And I think Dave's been saying this a lot of times, and, I don't know what help he's getting, but maybe the best help for you to get would be the supervisor of elections to say, look, this is how ballot language might work. And then, you might have, how many people would get sewers for $1? You would probably get a bunch of people. How much would you get for $30,000? Not so much, but I think it would give you some gauge and show that we're listening. But until we have that language, I think this is just, we're going to keep going around in circles.
The thing is, if this isn't resolved, we're going to have another town manager sitting here a year from now, and it's going to be the same thing again. They're going to get thrown out with pitchforks and everything else because the commission is going to take the fault on this. I wanted to get this thing resolved sooner than later. I don't want to keep making a habit every 2 years to have to hire a new town manager.
I agree.
And the town manager is always going to be the scapegoat. It happened with Pam Walker. It's happening over here because this commission makes a decision, and it all goes back to source. Everything that's happened goes back to source. And I just want to get this thing resolved. We're either going to have them or we're not going to have them. I just want to move forward at this point. And I would like to, even if it's help from the residents, whatever it might be, I would like to get this, I have an open ear from anybody. If there's a way somebody makes a suggestion to me, I'm willing to sit down with you. And I want to get this ballot done, and I'd like to put something out there sooner than later.
Commissioner Fender.
We've all said, as you stated, that we don't support a mandate. But what you're missing in your discussion is that on my street, I can sign up for AT&T UVerse. I can sign up for Comcast cable. I could get direct dish satellite. But we do this, we have these things. I can get FPL to deliver me electricity. I can get Martin County to deliver water to my house. I have the choice whether I want those or not. I don't have the choice of whether I can properly decide how to dispense with my human waste, right? So this is not really a political issue. This is an infrastructure issue. Do I want to have a septic system, or do I want to hook up to engineered municipal sewage supplies? And I think future residents of the peninsula want for us to build that infrastructure so they can decide which way they want to go. You know, right now, you're saying, no, I'm going to vote, I'm going to put out a ballot, and I'm going to vote so that you can never have infrastructure. And to me, it's just a backwards way of thinking. I mean...
Maybe we do support non-mandatory source. And I think that might be a better way to word it.
Why? Okay, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying, why is that a question?
Because this is something that we've heard, and I've gotten emails, you've gotten emails, I've gotten phone calls, I'm sure you've all had phone calls. This is something that people want to get resolved. I've had people call me saying, I do want sewers, where are they? And I've had a lot of people say, Dave, don't even think about it. I don't want to see a sewer in this town. So, but somewhere in between, I still want to get resident input. And
The place in between is don't hook up.
Well, we call non-mandatory. Would people say non-mandatory sewers? Or would they say, I want sewers or no sewers? Maybe you give them three choices.
We have the north end of the peninsula as, we've already done this. In fact, this whole dance we're doing, we've done already. And it was vitriol, and finally the project got put in place. And in fact, there was even a vote. And I assume that same question will be asked to potential people who might hook up in the future, if they want to hook up or not. And they'll get that vote.
Well, let me go back and ask Joe a question. Joe, is it possible to get a price, any possibility to get a price resolved in 3 months if we were to go out to ballot with this? So I could say, this is what it would cost. Is that a probability?
Well, we can come up with some prices. That's not the problem, but the point is we need to create a document in our design that says this is how it would be cost, this is how we provide service, and quite frankly, we're not going to have a definite answer in 3 months. The design group told me they can't get it done that fast. There's too much other things that are ahead of us. So
What's the soonest you think this is a probability?
it's going to be somewhere between 3 to 6 months, but I can't guarantee 3 months right now.
So you're saying it could be as late as July?
Could be. Again, I'll try to push them faster, but the fact of the matter is I'm trying to feed them all the information they need to do their design and to make, they already do the design for the vacuum system, okay? But they need elevation, so I have a surveyor that's going out there and giving them certain elevations and things like that. So there are components that I have to feed them, and those things that's going to take at least 30 to 60 days to get all that information. And so, it just takes time to go through the process, and that's what they do for a living. They do these reports specifically so that when there's no question that this is something that can happen and it'll work and it can be financed and everybody equitably will be paying their fair share, so.
Would it be quicker if we were to eliminate vacuum, so if we did the plan with just grinders and gravity?
The county won't accept that. They want to know, they want a comparison on the vacuum because that's what they prefer. Don't get me wrong, if we did gravities, that'd be great, but we're tearing up everything then. That's just very expensive.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Town Manager?
if I can relieve some of the concern there, and there were two mayors, a former mayor and the sitting mayor, who can verify that in the meetings, I made it known to the gentlemen that were in the meetings with us that that was a non-starter for us. The town, the commission, has been very communicative in saying they're not participating in a mandated opportunity here. So they understand that when we are going out for a plan, we're looking for different methodologies with reduced costs. And that is very clear to them, which is why the organization, it's not Joe's group that's doing it, he is being outsourced to an organization that specializes in this, and we are taking a look at infrastructure that already exists down in South Sewalls Point, and so that we can use it, because there is a certain community, for instance, Sewalls Meadow, when those homes were built, they were built with the infrastructure for a centralized sewer system. That's going to make the burden a lot less. And so because we have an established community and established areas that are 300 or less, that now, based on the, I'm going to use the word lightly, argument that we provided along with Mayor Tompeck, we believe that that now changes the situation so that we are no longer a 600 plus, I'm sorry, I have a hard time when I hear everybody speaking out there, a 600 plus FTC organization, right? So we're not asking for 652 to be transitioned to vacuum any longer. We're asking for the communities to be broken up where there's already existing infrastructure, and then probably what will happen once they give us back the methodologies and the potential costs, then a balloting option might be available to use in the same way it was for North Sewalls Point, simply to create the queue of which neighborhoods go first. So when they received that information for North Sewalls Point, they knew and they created Section 1, Section 2, remember there was a time when you all voted on the sections? And so that way they know that they are attacking the areas that have the most failed units, and then also the communities that are saying, we want it first. And so there aren't any conversations that are occurring among staff and when the mayors are there that say that a vacuum system is appropriate. And I also would stand by this statement, and I would have your town attorney take a look at it. There's a state statute out there that recognizes that multiple systems offer the same results. And in that state statute, it says if one system and another system are compared and they offer the same reduction of nitrogen and phosphorus, then one system over another can't be mandated. And so based on that alone, if the science can prove that we can remove the same amount of toxins, then we're in a good position as well. There's no pushback happening right now from Martin County Utilities other than the fact that from a long-term maintenance, the vacuum system is better for them. But what we're saying is it doesn't work. It's a non-starter for the community that we are representing. And they've been in agreement with it, which is why they said, let's use a third-party planning organization to come back with some other options. So these other options are going to provide you with so much more data that we haven't had before. And I believe that you do need that data in order to make the next decisions.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, Commissioner Hersman, I can totally relate to wanting to get this done and move forward and kind of know which direction we're going. So I appreciate that comment, and I also agree with the fact that when we can't get out of our own way, the town manager can become the scapegoat. But that being said, and since I want to make my position clear, I wouldn't support a ballot before we get the design. Like I said, I'm just making that clear that I wouldn't vote for it until we get the design, and in which case I would be glad to revisit the ballot discussion.
All right, I just wanted to get a commitment from my other four fellow commissioners. Once we get the price, before we say yay or nay, once we do have the price, we're not going to make a decision, but we'll send a ballot out, giving the residents the option with a price on their decision. And if that decision is no, we accept it. If the decision is yes, we move forward. Can I get an agreement from my other four fellow commissioners?
I would agree to that. And I would agree if it says to build, that we take a look at building it. So I think that's the strength of hearing the voices of the community. I think you got your answer.
I was looking for three more people to leave an answer.
Well, I think the question you're, it's a difficult question to answer the way you've asked it, okay? Because if we're talking about, depending upon how that ballot goes, if we're looking at a ballot similar to what we did in North Sewell's Point, I think everybody would probably say yes. Okay, if it's a yay or nay on overall septic to sewer, that's more problematic. That's more problematic to me, and I think, well, I'm not going to speak for the other commissioners.
Okay.
I'm saying it's problematic for
I
me.
feel like you're voting to limit my rights, so why would I vote for you to keep me from enhancing my property? It makes no sense to me.
All right, you're being honest.
All right, any other comments on that one? No. Okay.
And
Dave, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kurzman, Vice Mayor Kurzman, excuse me. What I would suggest is that we certainly bring this item back once we've gotten the preliminary design report.
Great.
Okay.
All right, let's see, the next item is 12E, Financial Advisor Services.
So, Attorney, can you tell us how we dispose of these so that we can move on? It's almost 10 o'clock. We'll be back here in about 15 hours from now for another meeting. So how do we dispose of these? I don't think anyone's interested in pursuing them.
Yeah, I think what you can do is you just consider it and make a motion whether you want to, for example, I know the gentleman for bond counsel is present, whether you want to hear him or not, that's up to the council.
wow.
You then have a motion whether you want to retain that person or not. Really pretty straightforward. You can accept or not.
I move we dispose of the request for proposals for financial advisory and bond counsel.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question when you say
Sure.
dispose of it, or do we want to just defer to a later meeting?
We could defer it to a later meeting. I had no idea that was you sitting out there, sir.
Oh, my God.
I didn't invite you, and we've had a history of only getting one request, one bid for an RFP, and I think that's what the situation we're in right now. I think that you deserve a lot of credit from being here, and I think you deserve to be here if in the future we decide to move ahead with something like this. But we've only got one bid, and we've got nothing on the financial services side, and I think this is a big issue, and it comes with a fixed fee of $16,000. So what would be the way to push it back so that we could invite him back perhaps at a future time?
Well, again, if you wanted to keep this RFP active, you could simply, accept these proposals and defer any interview. The financial advisor is simply got no proposals, so simply
Right.
make a motion that,
So that's what I would like to move to do.
break them up. Financial advisor, simple. And just so you know, on the break, I did speak to Mr. Miller, and he said if the commission would like, he'd be happy to give a short overview of what this process is like, not in terms of a quote sales pitch, but just in terms of this is what public financing is. So it's up to you whether you want to hear his 5-minute presentation about what public financing looks like in Florida.
Can we dispose of the first one?
Sure.
And then address that?
You can basically say, you
I don't
can't
know
say
if-
reject all bids because you didn't receive any bids. So it's simply a matter of we received no bids, so it's therefore
Right.
canceled.
Okay.
Okay, do we have to make a motion to cancel the financial advisor RFP?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Sure.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompak?
Yes. Okay, so that brings us to 12F. I think we've already started to discuss that. What's the pleasure of the commission?
If it really is 5 minutes, he's here, and, I would, what's 5 minutes? It'll put us at 10 even. I would be
Yeah,
definitely
right.
open to hearing him speak.
I would say, out of the courtesy of the town of Sewalls Point, that would be the gracious thing to do.
Absolutely.
And you're a gracious lady.
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity. I understand it's kind of an unusual situation that you only got one response, and you're having some transition in your staff, but I'd be
Excuse me,
happy...
Mr. Mayor, can you just say who you are and where you're from?
Sorry.
It's okay,
So- I'm
for the
sorry.
record.
Skip Miller, I'm with law firm of Greenspoon Martyr in West Palm Beach. We are bond counsel for a number of communities, mostly in northern Palm Beach County and other parts of the state. And basically what bond counsel does, it's our job to structure either a bank loan or an underwriting through an investment banking firm. And then it is then up to us to give an opinion that the transaction is legal and valid and binding, and also, more importantly, sometimes that the interest on the bonds or the loan will be tax exempt. That's kind of the main thing that a bond counsel does. And we work with staff, we work with your town attorney, we work with financial advisors usually when there is one. I would say in your situation, I would strongly recommend that you have a financial advisor before you move forward with any financing. We would be happy to assist you with that. We'd be happy to be named your bond counsel without any expectation of compensation initially. That way, as you move forward, you'll have the benefit of an expert in the field to give you advice on the different things that you're going to do. And if you wind up not doing anything, that's fine. Our fee typically is only paid when there's closing. So again, I don't want to take up too much time. Happy to assist the town in any way that I can, and thank you again. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So you're saying you look at the loan, your job is to make sure, mentioned that the interest is tax exempt, so that you're kind of like the, but you make sure it's all good for us, is that?
Yes, that we represent the town, that is correct.
Okay.
The way
That seems like
I've
a
seen this in the
worthwhile thing to
past
have.
is the way the financial advisor and the bond counsel, they work very closely together. Financial advisor will really kind of explain to you the options in terms of the debt instruments or whatever, and they work with them to make sure we have work with the bond counsel and make sure we have the proper resolutions and that kind of thing going forward. And that's really how it works together.
Right, and quite honestly, there are different ways to structure a loan or a bond issue, and your financial advisor would be the right party to advise you about that. And again, it's our job to make sure that everything is done in a legal manner and that all the parties are fulfilling their different responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, is there a, yeah, thank you. Thank you for sticking it out.
Yes.
We're very impressed. Is there any kind of a motion anybody wants to make on 12F?
I would move that we would defer this matter and keep the bid available, but push it off until we get a more successful RFP
Can we do that?
For the financial advisor, I mean?
for the bond counsel.
Bond counsel.
You had said that was the way to dispose it, is to push it down, keep
Yeah,
the,
I wasn't clear. If you wanted to keep this firm as an option in your back pocket, then you're not going to go out for another RFP. But if you want to go back out for an RFP.
I want to go out for another RFP.
Okay, so
There's
then
no
you-
way that we're going to have this responsibility with only a single one. I mean,
Then you reject all bids.
okay, I move that we reject all bids for bond counsel.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Oh, that was a mistake, that was
That
from
was a
before,
mistake?
sorry. Yeah, I
Second.
is there a second? Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Commissioner Fender.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Aye.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Thank you, and we'll keep you in mind.
Carson's is open till 11. They have bar food on the way out, okay?
All right, that brings us down to commission and staff closing comments. Any staff comments?
It's supposed to be first.
I'm sorry,
May I?
please.
Okay, he was the second most patient person. Chief Tina's the most.
Just quickly, the departure of the town manager and the finance director came rather quickly, and with us being short-staffed and officer illnesses and things of that nature, there's really no way for us to be able to come together. But on behalf of the staff, I want to thank Michelle and Cheryl for everything that they've done for me personally, for the staff here. Honestly, she's the best finance director we've ever had, okay? Cheryl, you asked her for something, boom, it's there. I mean, 24 hours a day. The woman never sleeps. Must be afraid of finance directors. And personally, professionally, I've learned a lot from Michelle. I've appreciated her honesty and straightforwardness, and her concern from the staff. I mean, it's been a long 2 years. Look at us, okay? And I think that for us, she was able to strike that balance of keeping us safe, keeping the town safe, and protecting the citizens here. It's been a very professional work environment, and I just want to say thank you. And I think that all the staff feels the same way. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Very nice.
Mr. Mayor?
I see this other item under staff comments for Phase 1. Can we, are you going to make that very quick, Joe?
I just wanted to make sure, we're finishing up the project, couple little items, but the total project cost was about 2.89 million, less than the 4.4, but
I like 2.8 better.
I liked it too,
Give me
so.
2 more of those.
So we'll keep pushing for that, but, we had 963,000 from FEMA, DEP gave us 600,000, 330 from Indian River Lagoon, and we are still asking FEMA for some more money for about 660,000. So I just want you to know, we're still in the hunt for more money. We haven't given up on it. They haven't installed the pumps yet out there, but there's some punch list work. We were able to put a swell in Mrs. Hoover's property and sod it, and so that's been finished. And so anyways, grant money's ongoing. We're going to be doing some water quality monitoring. You'll see some equipment out there. We have to do that because of the grant funds we did receive from IRL as well as DEP. And obviously after that, it's maintenance. So we're ready to go. Anyway, just want to give you a final update.
Thank you very much. Any other staff comments?
Quickly, I would just say it's been my honor to serve, and I really appreciate the position of each one of you as far as the leaders here within the organization. And I know that the town has incredible potential to continue to be the best business case in the state of Florida for resiliency efforts. And I hope you take that and run with it. And really knowing that with Phase 1, we've come in with over, an enormous amount of grants. We're looking at between all the phases right now and the potential pending that we have this session of being around $5 million in grants awarded in a 2-year period. And then, the other comfortable thing we can say is we reduced operational spending year over year. And so we know that we operated efficiently and effectively, and certainly I've enjoyed my time. I really have, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege to serve the residents, and it's been a fun project. And with that, I will turn it over to Glenn. First of all, I will say that I've said my thank yous to my amazing team, just an incredible team that we've had here as well. And so they are ready to continue to serve and give you continuity in services. But I will turn to Glenn so we can discuss the potential attorney-client session as a reminder.
So, 2 things. 3 actually. First, also I want to thank Michelle and Cheryl. Working with them for the past couple of years has been great. Always responsive, always on top of things. Secondly, I'll be sending out a letter to each of you tomorrow about the status of the PBA, and then call each one of you, and if you want to have an attorney-client session about that, I'll talk to you about a schedule, and we can announce that even at tomorrow night's meeting and pick a date that works for everybody. And third, tomorrow night. So I think you all know we have two candidates at this point. Mr. Benoit dropped out late this afternoon, and I sent a late email out, that's why I want to announce it tonight, in case you hadn't had a chance to see your email. Notified both Mr. Hudson and Mr. Nicoletti, so Mr. Hudson will be here for the 6 o'clock interview. Mr. Nicoletti will be here for the 6:30 interview. I think both of you all have their resumes. In terms of questions for them, I have received some questions from some of you, but not from all of you, so if you want to send them, I will try tomorrow to compile them, so if one person maybe has sent 5 questions and another one has sent none, I'll try to say, okay, just randomly assign, you have one, whatever. I'm thinking that you probably, based on the number I've received so far, probably 2 questions each. Does that sound about right?
Did you receive some from the public?
No.
Because I have heard some come.
I think some of the commissioners may have sent ones that they might have received from the public. I don't know. So if you have any questions, if you can send them to me, the earlier the better, so I can put them in a format. And with that, I guess, see you all tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Other people have their lights on.
Sorry. Commissioner Campo.
So what's the roll-up at the end? We have a 6 o'clock, which by the time we come in and do the pledge and everyone gets seated is, 6:05, 6:10. So what do you plan for? Is it just going to be a simple vote or a scoring system, or what did you have?
And my understanding was, we haven't talked about that, so I'm glad you brought that up. You have those 2 choices. You either have some kind of a scoring sheet or you have a simple vote. I think the last time you did this was I think you did a simple vote, where one of you makes a motion that you appoint Joe, Mike, which either one of those 2 candidates. And if there's 3 votes, that's the person that gets appointed. Usually before you do that, you have a conversation among yourselves. And you talk about how I like this about, this candidate, and I like that about that candidate. They'll both be here. They both graciously agree that they'll wait in the other room while the other candidate is being interviewed, even though they have the right to sit in the meeting. And then once you deliberate and make a decision, I think you've seen the financial proposals from both of them.
Are we interviewing from the dais, or are we breaking up into the?
No, I think just the dais. I think you're just having the
I think what we
dais.
talked about was, giving them 5 or 10 minutes to kind of introduce themselves, say why they want the job, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd spend the rest of the 20 minutes trying to ask questions.
And I told each one of them, Mr. Benoit, that, they needed to address what role, if any, they wanted to play in the city manager, permanent town manager selection process. So they both know that's a topic they need to hit. We've talked briefly, they all are aware of septic to sewer's importance to the town. They both know they're going to be starting out with a 5-minute or so presentation, have questions and answers, and probably a couple of minute wrap up at the end.
And then do you propose having a written agreement with them after we come to terms?
Yes, I would think you'd have an interim town manager agreement. Based on the conversation of both of them, I don't think either one's going to, for example, want health insurance. They may not need any other benefits. It could be a simple, here's the rate. And again, they both put their proposals in there. I think one was, I think on an hourly basis, they're almost identical, because one was $97.50, I think, for 30 hours. The other one was $12,000 a month for 40 hours. So I'm not the CPA, but my rough math is they're within a couple of dollars of the same hourly rate. And I guess that's part of your conversation with each of them is, do they see this as a 30-hour week, 40-hour week position? How flexible are they? For example, if Mr. Cooper's at 30 hours a week and the commission believes 40 hours a week, I imagine he would scale up his, rate to compensate, and the same for Mr. Nicoletti. If you'd said we only need 30 hours a week, he'd probably scale it back down, but that may be a question you talked about them. I see the agreement being similar to any town manager's agreement, but obviously streamlined.
As long as we know you're going to wrap up the details, I think that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and then it'll come back to you at your next meeting for approval.
Do you think February 1st would be a reasonable start date?
That really depends on, because they could start without the contract.
Okay.
Start with the verbal and saying, that depends on both their schedules. I have no idea if either one could start that quickly, or if they need other, from my conversations, they both have other projects they're working on, but I don't believe either one is working full-time or close to full-time anywhere else.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yes, I wanted to also thank, is this commissioner comments now?
It is.
Okay, I just want to make sure, yeah. I wanted to thank Town Manager Berger, as well as our Finance Manager Cheryl for a wonderful 2 years and the great job they've done. I found you to have been a tremendous asset, and you've definitely brought the town in a much better shape than you found it in. You've organized us. We got an infrastructure in here that we didn't have. The office is much neater, everything all around. With the phase one of the projects, I've admired you, Michelle. When there was flooding down there, you came out in your clothes, all dressed up, and you'd be out there when the water was up to like your knees, and what I seen was remarkable, and you definitely taking good care of the community. You put the town first. I've always felt that way personally, and I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. Both of you, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Fender.
I had 2 points. First was to get the questions answered, but really I just wanted to say thanks to both Michelle and Cheryl for 2 years of, working side by side, and you guys did way more work than I did, and I'm super appreciative of having to been in your sphere, but thanks so much for tolerating me and allowing me to learn from you, and I won't be nearly as eloquent as Chief Tina, but I have enjoyed the roller coaster ride for the last couple of years, so hopefully we won't be strangers.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, just to add to that, I also want to say thank you to Cheryl. My accountant CPA self really enjoyed talking to you, and you would answer all my questions about the financials. So you have been very good, and the town was lucky to have you. And Michelle, same thing. I've learned a lot from you. Such a hard worker. We would be lucky, again, to have somebody that works that hard and is that dedicated. And, you really believe in government and good government, and that's an asset, a real asset to any municipality, in it for the right reasons. So thank you for all that. I also wanted to, I'd meant to bring this up at the other meeting, but they've been so exciting, and I tend to forget during my commissioner comments. But the ARPA funds, Cheryl, we do want to update everyone on how there's been some loosening of the quick, right?
I did send out.
Yeah, you sent out the email, yep. Yeah.
Sure. So you each should have received an email, it came out about the 7th or 8th of January. There was some additional guidance with the ARPA funds, and so now you can establish up to 10 million can automatically be used as lost revenue, which essentially for the town means that your award, since it is not up to 10 million, it's roughly a little over 1 million, almost has no restrictions.
Wow.
So it is yours.
And there were a ton of restrictions, not a ton, but real restrictions before, so I think that's good news.
I just want to say that I don't yet qualify for ARPA funds.
As an additional, just one more detail on that. I sat on a conference call right after the changes with other small towns, and many of them are also looking at opportunities to use it for retention and recruitment, especially for their police forces or emergency operations forces that are having a hard time garnering new candidates.
Okay, good point, thank you.
Mr. Campo?
Well, I already gave my positive accolades to Michelle and Cheryl last meeting, and it's getting late, but I just concur, and I appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Since I apparently get the last word tonight, I won't belabor the point, but I certainly agree with all the commissioners, and I appreciate your level of dedication and your patience with a new commissioner and new mayor, which has been really helpful to me. And trust me, folks, I will get the job sooner or later. Any other business? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
We're adjourned. Thank you.